Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of ingenious things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. And I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Joining us first on the left side of your screens from New York City. He's wearing the Pride hat. He's Mark Priaulx. Mark, what's up?
From New York City now, huh? I'll take it.
Well, close enough.
Close enough, right?
Omar might not feel good about that. He's actually from New York City.
Listen, I'll take it. It's fine.
But yeah, doing good. Spring is in the air in New York. March Madness is humming. We are coming off a ridiculous London card, and I am pumped to do this show today.
Yes, sir. And joining us on the right sides of your screen from Florida, the Sunshine State, the Nicaraguan Nightmare, Omar Artola. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? We had to do some spinning back elbows in class in honor specifically of Molly Meatball.
Nice.
True story.
Did they make
Good
you yell
time.
meatball each time you spun? Meatball, meatball.
Dude, it was, I actually think I might still have. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Wow,
From
nice.
3 hours. I went to a 3 hours worth of classes on Monday because I can't go for the rest of the week. Spinning back elbows the entire time. It was kind of fantastic.
Omar,
Nice,
since I brought it
nice.
up, where are you from? What city did you grow up in?
Manhattan.
Manhattan. You were born in Manhattan, childhood in Manhattan.
Yep. Went to school in
I don't think I
Manhattan.
ever knew that.
The whole deal.
The Heights?
Yeah.
That's
Dude, I basically lived in the same apartment until I moved down to Tampa. Like, I
Oh,
went
wow.
to Buffalo for a while and then came back home and kind of just chilled there. My parents moved out, so it was kind of my place. And
Why'd you go to Buffalo?
school.
Oh, there you go. That's where my wife is from. Hey, there you go.
We're still learning things about each other on this show.
The more
And now
you
we're
know.
doing it. Now we're doing it together with our fans.
That's right. That's right. Well, spring was in the air here in Michigan. It was like 65, 70 degrees yesterday, and today it's like 40 again. In Michigan, it's like,
us
ha,
tomorrow.
not so fast.
Coming to us tomorrow.
You got to know where you are. Yeah, man. Well, we have a lot to talk about, boys. We're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment, On the Marquee. There's quite a few names who could be on the marquee coming off of this past weekend's card. We are going to break down quite a few amazing bouts from this past weekend's fight night. Then we're going to go right into our Priaulx rankings and find out who has risen and who has fallen in Mark's rankings. Then we're going to dive inside the MMA sphere with Omar, see what's new in the MMA headlines. Then we're going to break down this coming weekend's 1FC, I think it's called 1X or 110. I spent too many years at Apple. And now I look at an X and I think I have to say 10. We're also going to look at this coming weekend's UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Daukaus. So before we get into any of that, guys, anybody who's watching this right now or listening, thank you so much. The number one thing that you guys can do that will help us out is if you share this video. If you know anybody who is into MMA, is a big MMA fan, who might not yet know about our show, go right ahead and share this episode with them. And nothing's going to help us out more than that. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Any points we're making tonight, any takes that you agree with, let us know. Any takes that we make that you disagree with vehemently, let us know down in the comments or DM us on Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, find us on all social media platforms at @andnew_MMA show. And as I mentioned, find us wherever you get your podcasts. That being said, let's go right into our first segment, On the Marquee. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Tom Aspinall, who this past weekend at UFC Fight Night, Volkov versus Aspinall at the O2 Arena in London, England, in front of 17,081 screaming fans, Tom Aspinall finished Alexander Volkov by submission via straight arm bar. The official time came at 3 minutes and 45 seconds of round number one. My goodness, did Mr. Tom Aspinall look good in this Fight Night main event. Mark, let me start with you. What was your take on how this fight played out?
So, as our listeners know, this is the guy I have hitched my wagon to in the heavyweight division. He was my heavyweight breakout star on our 2022 preview show and one of my top, I think, 3 breakout stars overall. I said last week on our preview that I thought he was special and that I thought he was the next heavyweight contender. And even with all that belief that I had in him already, I'm still blown away by how good Tom Aspinall is. We are now at the level of passing Alexander Volkov. There are not a lot of levels left in the heavyweight division. And Tom Aspinall still looks like he hasn't found someone who's on his. I mean, that wasn't even hard. But none of his fights yet have been hard in any way. I mean, he has the size, the foot speed, the footwork, the hand speed, the timing, the power, the poise in there, his head movement, how heavy he is on top, his jiu-jitsu, the finishing instinct. Like, I just said all those things, and I still can't say enough about this guy. Like, some people may hear this and think that I'm going too over the top with my praise. But it's 5 fights now, and I'm yet to see this man break a sweat. And there's only 6 heavyweights left in front of him in the rankings, and he hasn't sweated yet. It's crazy to me how good he has looked.
Omar, let me throw it over to you. What was your reaction as Tom Aspinall finished Mr. Volkov in the way that he did?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all had him by KO, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I don't think any of us really saw a submission coming. The one thing I will say is when it happened, there was something that immediately dropped on the internet that had me laughing, where they had, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the meme of Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man with his glasses on and his glasses off, looking at himself in the mirror. And there's one image of Tom Aspinall and then another image of Frank Mir.
Yeah.
It's like, virtually identical, perhaps. It was, yeah. I mean, it was a very impressive performance. There's not really much you can say other than the heavyweight division needs to be on notice, and I mean every single one of them, from Stipe to Tuivasa to Ngannou to Gon. As far as I'm concerned, even Gon had praise for him. Basically, said that he's probably the most dangerous thing in the heavyweight division. That he might be even more technical than himself, which is saying something considering Gon is significantly more technical than most of the heavyweight division right now. I think we have nothing but great things to see from Tom Aspinall, and this UK takeover might be a real thing, or at least I'm sold on it at this point. That was just too much fun not to be.
Yeah, I'm always struck by how much of a passing resemblance there is between Tom Aspinall and the young Frank Mir. Of course, they don't exactly have the same game, Frank Mir being much more heavy in grappling jiu-jitsu, much more known as a submission guy back in the day. Tom Aspinall, much more of a well-rounded, definitely leans heavily on his striking skills, but he's good everywhere, man. Like Mark was saying, the guy he's outstanding as a heavyweight. Man, the top of the heavyweight division is really good right now.
Yeah,
you know, you've got Ngannou. Yeah, man. Cyril Gane obviously is incredible. Stipe's still there. The rise of Tai Tuivasa has been exciting to watch. And now Tom Aspinall has arrived, gentlemen. That being said, where do we think Tom Aspinall goes from here? Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What do you think is going to be next for him as he now is stepping into the upper echelon at UFC heavyweight?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really many places for him to go at this point. He's got to be fighting at least one of the top 5 going forward. The problem is a lot of these things are kind of in flux. Like, so for example, Francis Ngannou has just had knee surgery, so he's going to be out for probably, it looks like, at least the next 9 months. We all know that we've been talking about his contract disputes for a hot minute now, and supposedly his contract expires by the end of the year. So who knows what that even means? Right now there's rumors of, I believe it was Stipe and Tuivasa going for the interim title, if I'm not mistaken, which seems a little weird to me, but
I feel like as soon as those rumors started swirling, then Dana started mentioning how Bones could fight Stipe for an interim title. So,
oh, okay.
Not really sure.
Still weird, but we'll go with it, I guess. But it just goes to show how crazy volatile the top of heavyweight is just because of everything that's going on. We've had a lot of repeat matches as a result of their being such a top-heavy heavyweight division. It's only recently in the last, I would say probably the last 6 months, maybe not even a year, that we've really had this like surge of heavyweight contenders really start to shine and to kind of polish themselves up, Tuivasa included. Tuivasa didn't always have this, you know, incredible rise that he's having now. He's had the fan base, but not actually the results that he's recently been putting together. So, long story short, who's next for Tom Aspinall? I mean, I don't really want to watch Derek Lewis lose again. Like, I really don't. But there he is. Doesn't really have anything, as far as I know, lined up. Curtis Blaydes obviously has a fight this weekend. Stipe and Tuivasa seem like there needs to be something in the mix there. Jones might be coming back. Cyril Gane also doesn't have anything going for him right now. It looks like, at least not currently. One could say that you could throw him to the Wolves, but seems like he should get one more before getting all the way to the tippy top of the mountain. So maybe you give him Derek Lewis and see what happens.
Mark, let me throw it over to you. Put on that matchmaker hat. What do you envision next for Tom Aspinall?
Yeah, we're going on the top of the mountain. I know he has to tie to
he's going.
And I don't mean title shot top of the mountain, but the next best thing. I know he has for Tuivasa, and maybe that's because he thinks he could style on Tuivasa or just that it'd be a fun fight. But the only matchup that I can think about since this event ended on Saturday is Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. I love that fight. I need that fight. I hope we get it. I'm so interested to see them match technique. Gane feels like he even though Gane himself said in this quote Omar was referencing that Aspinall is actually more technical than he is, it feels like straight striking. Maybe Gane is still the more technical, but Aspinall is the more well-rounded of the two, I'd say. And I'm just so intrigued to see how that fight would go. I'm ready to book that right now.
Okay.
I have a quick question before we move on to the next fight. Is there a weakness that one of you has seen in Tom Aspinall? Like where you would say, this is what you have to exploit?
It hasn't really gone that far. Like, to be honest, there's certain things that are still kind of variables that are still throw-ups in the air as to how he would react. Like, we've never really seen him in danger. We've never really seen him hurt. We don't know what he's going to react in those kind of situations. The reality is he's been too damn good for us to do anything to really fully evaluate him to that point, which is why we want to keep testing him and, quote unquote, throwing him to the wolves. Because, like, who's going to stop this kid at this point?
I might be living in the moment right now. I'm ready to pick this guy over any heavyweight if he fought them today.
Even if he fought Francis?
Francis is the only one that would give me Paul. I think literally if they fought today, I think I'd pick him over Stipe, Gane. Who was the other one I was saying? Tuivasa. Francis would give me pause, but I still think I'd pick Aspinall. That's how much I love this dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, he has a certain kind of an
agility. Might also be dumb, but we'll see.
Yeah, he has a certain kind of agility for a heavyweight, but he still doesn't give up any size. Like even a guy like Stipe, who is a lighter heavyweight. I think Stipe fights at only 240. And what is Stipe? Is he 6'4"? I don't even think so. He might be just 6'3".
No, I don't think he. Yeah, I want to say maybe
is he 6'2".
Let's see, 6'4". You were right, 6'4".
Stipe.
I thought he was 6'3", but this. Oh, okay.
Me too.
One thing says 6'4", one thing says 6'3". So who knows?
Well, there you go. Even it being in question, there are heavyweights that tower over Stipe and present a challenge in terms of size and power. Tom Aspinall, while he moves like such an agile heavyweight, he doesn't give up size to pretty much anybody at 6'5".
Yeah, the way he fights makes you forget how big he is.
Yeah, even Volkov didn't tower over him and make him look tiny. So
yeah. There's something too about Tom Aspinall that seems like his frame is like perfectly fitted for his size too, because Stipe has always looked a little like on the smaller side, even when it comes to like the muscle mass. When it came to his body, Tom Aspinall doesn't really look. He looks like he's got all the power inside of his body.
Yeah, especially in Stipe's last few performances, when he steps in there, I wonder, could he cut to 205? He kind of looks like a light heavyweight sometimes.
I've thought it a couple times in the past, not really recently, I feel like, but yeah, you never know.
He'd be a big light heavyweight, to be honest.
He would be.
Yeah.
Going back to Volkov, any names you guys want to throw out in terms of where do you think Alexander Volkov goes from here?
I'm going with a winner from this card, and that is Sergei Pavlovich. I think that is a perfect fight for both guys right now. It might feel a little quick for some people for Pavlovich, but Abdurakhimov was 10. Volkov has kind of fought most of this pack above him. He's lost now. He kind of needs to, reclaim his spot here, and I'm ready to throw him in there with Pavlovich. I think that's a banger.
Okay, Omar.
It's actually not a bad. That's not a bad matchup. especially from a stylistic standpoint. That's actually super interesting to see who comes out on top. Both of them are very striking heavy. And Pavlovich seems like he's definitely got hands, heavy hands. And like I said, I don't trust Volkov when it comes to getting the job done. So I don't expect a lot from him going forward, to be honest. But I'll second the Pavlovich fight because that actually does sound like a really good one.
I got one for you. I feel like I'm never really good at the matchmaking part of this. I would love to see Volkov rematch Derek Lewis, who's also coming off a loss.
That was a thought, yeah.
So both guys looking to get back in the win column. Derek Lewis obviously just losing to Tai Tuivasa. And they fought. That would be a great rematch because there's a huge justification for it because Volkov was dominating that fight up until the very end. And
I'm sure he would love to get
Derek
that.
Lewis does. Yeah, probably. All right. Anything else you guys want to say about this main event?
Let's keep it rolling.
Okay, moving on to the co-main event in the featherweight division. Almighty Arnold Allen defeated Dan the Hangman Hooker by TKO in round number 1, the official time being 2 minutes and 33 seconds. My man, Dan Hooker, breaks your heart, man. I want to see this guy win so bad. Anybody who knows anything about Dan Hooker and the trials that he's been through with COVID and the pandemic and travel restrictions from New Zealand, it's impossible to not root for the guy. And add to that he's, one of the most badass guys on the whole roster who says no to any fight, doesn't say no to any fight, fights all comers, and he's very highly skilled. But he faced off against a featherweight. By the way, Dan Hooker has fought a lot of his career at lightweight, tried to reinvent himself recently to featherweight, made the cut well, looks shredded on the scale, not in a scary way. Seems like he's going to be legit at featherweight, but he ran into a guy who is a rising star in the division, being Arnold Allen. Omar, let me start with you. Allen looked great. He styled on Dan Hooker. He dominated him, and he ultimately finished him by TKO. What was your take watching this fight?
Yeah, I mean, heartbreaking is probably the best word for it. That was one of those fights that somebody had to lose. You wanted something positive to come away for both guys, whether it was a gutsy performance, a real back and forth, something that we can talk about both of their performances. But the reality was Arnold Allen, had no chance for Hooker to do anything in that fight from the beginning all the way up until it ended. Hooker seemed slow in that fight, at least comparatively to Arnold Allen. I don't know if that was necessarily because of the weight cut or if that was just sort of because Hooker does do a lot of measuring in the beginning of his fights. And I think once he got hurt, I just don't think he was able to pick it back up again. I just think he was hurt until it got finished. And he was just super tough. He ate serious blows throughout that entire fight. I mean, it got real crazy and real nasty towards the end. A lot of people have been criticizing Dan Hooker for his performance, saying that he didn't look like he belonged at featherweight, that his power is not the same and his speed is not the same, and that he's at a disadvantage. I don't know if I really buy that take based off of that performance. I think the reality is he went in there with a guy who was just he was just at a different level in that moment. He turned on the gas. He was accurate with his punches. Once he hurt Hooker, it was the beginning of the end, and just Hooker didn't have the ability to recover. He didn't look great, admittedly. I didn't think he looked bad off of the weight cut, though, to be honest. I think he looked good when he was weighing in. He looked even better once he was rehydrated. I'm interested to see him come back at 145 and take another fight, but the reality was Arnold Allen was just the wall that he couldn't get through that night.
Mark, let me send it over to you. What was your reaction? How legit do you think Arnold Allen is?
Always good. There's questions about where Dan Hooker is right now, I guess, but to blast Dan Hooker out of there the way that he did, you're good. I'm surprised people are overanalyzing Hooker as much as Omar mentioned, because I feel like that fight was so hard to analyze because it was more or less just a brawl. So I don't know how you can break down Hooker so much the way he said people are kind of judging him. And, we've seen him have success at featherweight before. Like he had 6-7 fights in the UFC or something at featherweight before moving up to lightweight. So it's not like this is some crazy thing for him. Now, once he did move to lightweight, he said he never had any plans to go back to featherweight. Sure. So, maybe it's not the right decision, but he has been a featherweight for large chunks of his career. But with that being said, in terms of the fight, like I said, it was a brawl. I don't know what kind of switch went off inside Arnold Allen. I'd imagine maybe it was the energy from the crowd, and following up Paddy maybe played into it. But we have never seen him fight like that before. Just like completely throwing caution to the wind. That was wild. I'm not sure how him and his team drew that one up. And he did get caught bad once in those exchanges, but God, did he put a lot of damage onto Dan Hooker by the time that was over. And as for Hooker, I've mentioned this on here before. I think it's probably safe to say at this point that something has changed with his durability. I always reference that Poirier fight on here, and I talk about it as the kind of fight that takes years off of a career potentially. And I'm starting to believe it did that. Not only that, but he had the Felder fight right before that one. So to survive the hundreds of shots that he took from Felder and Poirier and get one hitter quitted by Chandler and then taken out by Arnold Allen like that, who, yeah, he was throwing hammers, but he's not typically known as a knockout artist. It just feels like maybe something has changed. Maybe Hooker's durability is not quite what it used to be. Unfortunately, I don't know if he is built for these wars anymore, which is unfortunate because that is where Dan Hooker thrived. So it's going to be tough for him going forward to figure out what his game is going to be if he can't safely engage in these firefights the way that he used to, safely air quotes, but you know what I mean? So we will see how Dan Hooker adjusts here and I guess what division he chooses to do that in.
I'd actually counter that point by saying I would think that this probably solidifies how durable he actually is. The reality was he took a ton of shots in that fight, and a lot of them were clean. He never really went down. Even when he was, knocked out and the referee stopped the fight, he was still technically standing. Like, I honestly think this was just Brendan or Arnold. Jesus, with the Brendan Allen. I really think this is Arnold Allen's moment. I just think it was a moment that and like you said, we've never seen him fight like that. And it's because I think, to your point, he went in there, everything was going on, everything was crazy. And I think he even said in one of the interviews, like, I just went out there and I said, fuck it. And he just threw balls to the wall. And the reality was he landed. And when he landed, he followed up. It could have been a Terrence McKinney moment where he blew his shit out and, Jesus.
Over.
Yes. He ends up, kind of coming back and kind of getting a resurgence, but instead that's just not what happened. It was a coin flip, and Arnold Allen risked it, and it worked for him.
You could be right. I know that he didn't drop, but I still think he was more easily hurt by punches than he has historically been. Like, I feel like he ate those same kind of punches from Poirier over 5 rounds, and he couldn't eat them from Arnold Allen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The ones from Arnold Allen, I will say, looked a lot less technical and a lot more like what's his name, Hands of Stone.
Yeah, he was very Lineker-esque. Like, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, he had a lot more Lineker in his hooks than he did, Poirier. Poirier is very calculated and very short with his hooks, whereas Lineker is like he's baseball pitching your ass from all the way back.
Maybe he watched Lineker's win, got inspired.
There you go.
If you're fighting John Lineker, just close your eyes and pretend that you're in a bar and that you're about to fight somebody in a bar. That's basically fighting John Lineker, because here he comes.
If I fought John Lineker in a bar, there'd be a chair in my hand.
Yeah. There'd have to be. Let's talk about where almighty Arnold Allen goes from here. One of my favorite nicknames right now in sport. Thanks for that. My man is about to break through into the upper echelon, the top tier featherweight. Mark, let me start with you. What do you see next for Arnold Allen putting on that matchmaker hat once again?
So with Allen, where he is now, we run into the same issue that we did a week ago or 2 weeks ago with Bryce Mitchell, in that the whole top 5 of featherweight is tied up right now. Volk is fighting Zombie. Max is waiting. Ortega and Yair are rumored. So what we did with Bryce was say, okay, I guess it's Calvin Kattar, but now Arnold Allen is kind of on the same level too. So, of course, only one of them can get the Calvin Kattar fight. So one of them is going to kind of be left out. Maybe one of them gets Zombie. If Zombie loses to Volk coming up soon, maybe that's what they could do. But either way, I would like it to play out in a way where Bryce Mitchell and Arnold Allen do not get matched up with each other. I'd rather see someone else try to give them their first UFC loss than to see it forced upon them from having to fight each other. So give me one of them with Cater, have the other weight. Maybe Zombie is who ends up making sense for them if he does lose to Volk.
Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And I guess if you're going to figure out how you're going to, choose one over the other, we'll wait to see what the Priaulx rankings say. But some of these rankings have Arnold Allen above Bryce Mitchell in the rankings at this point. So one would say that his, especially with the performance that went along with it, would more than, guarantee him a shot at somebody like Calvin Kattar to break into the top 5. Bryce Mitchell could still fight some other guys within the top 10 that don't necessarily involve Calvin Kattar. Less exciting, I guess, in that sense, especially because we're still trying to figure out how far Bryce Mitchell can go. But it still wouldn't hurt for Bryce Mitchell to keep, rolling down the road at a steady pace, especially now that we have somebody else that's almost arguably maybe more interesting from a fight perspective. So I definitely want to see the Calvin Kattar fight. That was the first name that I had in mind as soon as that fight was over. I was like, I have to see that fight. I don't care when you do it, but I have to see that fight.
It's who Allen asked for too in the cage.
Yeah, it's a great call. I mean, it was a fantastic call out as far as those in cage call outs go.
And now in the post fight, or really the post event scrum, Dana White was asked about what's going to be next for Dan Hooker, to which he said the guy made weight. He fought one of the toughest guys at this point. He could do whatever he wants. So it seems like Dana gives Dan Hooker a lot of love, a lot of respect. What do you guys think is next for Dan Hooker? Could be next, or maybe should be next for Dan Hooker? Omar, let me throw it over to you first.
So when the fight was over, after I got over how bad that fight really ended up being for Dan Hooker, I remembered somebody who may have also recently gone through something similar in that division and figured maybe this is a chance to see both of them together and see how that works out. And I'm referring to Giga Chikadze. I think a fight between Dan Hooker and Giga Chikadze would actually be super interesting, just especially based off of the losses, like I said. And stylistically, there's no way that that's not going to be an exciting fight.
Wow. No easy fights for Dan Hooker from Omar.
There's no point. I'm not going to throw him to like the guy at the back of the top 10. I'm not going to give him some top 15 guy. Dan Hooker is still very much a name. And even though Giga Chikadze is kind of towards the upper, the middle upper end of the division, a win over Dan Hooker is still a win over Dan Hooker. So there's a give and a take for this fight. It's definitely no favors involved here.
Dan Hooker, I'm looking at UFC.com, is still ranked number 13th at lightweight for the UFC, and I don't see his name among the featherweights yet.
He won't be.
How do you not drop him from the lightweight rankings when he has already fought at featherweight?
Yeah, it's weird. That being said, even if he goes all the way down to the top 15 of featherweight, there are no easy fights at featherweight. Featherweight is stacked right now. Mark, what do you think? What do you see next for Dan the Hangman?
So don't get me wrong. I would be hyped for a Giga Chikadze Dan Hooker fight, but I am taking him out of the rank, matching him against someone out of the rankings. I think that you have to do that in the hopes that maybe he can get a win, so that a win over Dan Hooker continues to mean something, because if it keeps happening, it's not going to mean something. So, he's in a bad place right now. He can still beat guys, obviously. But for a guy who once had big title aspirations, I think that ship may have sailed now in either division. But if he's going to stay at featherweight, I was thinking maybe an Andre Feely. He's not the step down that Hackprast was recently, but he's not a killer like these guys higher up at featherweight are. So we can get a sense of where Hooker's really at there. If he's going to go back up to lightweight, which honestly I would prefer, I think Dan Hooker is a better lightweight than a featherweight. I always have. Even when he was a featherweight, he was not really like Dan Hooker that we know him as. The explosion happened when he moved to lightweight. I just think he fights better there. If he does move there, again, I'm not putting him against a ranked fighter. I actually think him and Renato Moicano would be a fun one.
Okay.
I will say there's another fight that you could make that's a little bit lower in the rankings, to Mark's point, would be Barboza. Barboza versus Hooker, I think.
That would be a rematch.
Barboza hurt him pretty bad the first time.
But that was a competitive fight.
Where are you at, Dan Hooker?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, yeah, no, I'm looking at it right now, top 15. No easy fights. maybe Ige, maybe Burgos. I don't know. Definitely not Topuria, man. Topuria's gonna murder everybody in his path. That being said, we're gonna get to Topuria. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's keep this ship rolling.
Move on to the people's main event.
To the people's main event. I was just gonna say to the co main event. What were you gonna say, Omar?
You can't tell me you didn't have a hell of a time watching that whole fight.
I never said he's not fun.
Moment.
I never said he's not fun.
Okay, into the light. Let me set this up. In the lightweight division, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett submitted Kazula Vargas. The official time came at 3 minutes and 50 seconds of the very first round. I will say this too. Gives you an idea, I thought, of what the UFC thinks of Paddy Pimblett and where they want to go with him. My man was not in the main event and was not even in the co-main event. Bruce Buffer turns around after introducing Kazula Vargas and changes up his thing of how he introduces Paddy Pimblett. Do you guys remember this?
No. I was in Wild Wings. I couldn't hear a damn thing.
Bruce always turns around after the blue corner and says, and now introducing his opponent, fighting out of the red corner. That's what he always says.
Right.
Instead, he says Kazula Vargas. Then he turns around and he goes, and now.
Yes, dude, you're right. I remember it now.
I was like, look at the UFC pumping up my man Paddy Pimblett.
Yes,
treating
right,
it like it was like some extra special thing because the man drives ticket sales. He gets clicks, he gets eyeballs, all the things whatever you want to say. Paddy Pimblett is a star right now. He's a growing star, but he is not a star without some a little bit of controversy around whether or not his talent matches his stardom. So let's talk about it. Mark, let me start with you first this time. What was your impression of Paddy's performance in this fight, in which he got a first round finish, and what was your impressions of the spectacle this time around?
The spectacle was what?
Don't hurt him, Mark. Don't hurt him.
The spectacle was incredible, which I knew it would be. That's pretty much exactly how I pictured that. I was like, they're going to try to make this as similar to Conor in Ireland as they possibly can. Granted, Conor was knocking out Diego Brandao, who mattered, and Paddy Pimblett is knocking out a guy no one's ever heard of. But the fight went, honestly, exactly how I said it would. Wild exchange. Paddy's chin gets cracked. He goes back to his grappling, and he finds a sub. So I'll do the positives first. Number one is that Paddy Pimblett is obviously a massive star in the UK, and that was certainly solidified on this night. Number two is that after getting cracked, he did compose himself. That judo throw was gorgeous, just perfect. The immediate transition to the back was the same, and it was a great finish. But the negative is that Paddy, once again, got hit pretty clean, and it only took seconds for it to happen. He is a great offensive fighter. He's got offensive skills everywhere the fight goes. He can finish fights everywhere. But his striking defense is non-existent, and it can't keep happening because he is just going to hit a level eventually where that clean punch that gets through is putting him to sleep. And as for the levels, okay, we got him his win in the UK now. His star is huge. We did it. It's time to go up the line a bit here, and I hope they do. And I'm not talking like ranked fighters. We're far from that still. But Paddy has fought better guys in Cage Warriors than he's fought through 2 UFC fights thus far. And for what it's worth, the 2 best guys he fought in Cage Warriors were Soren Bach and Nadnir Rahmani, and they both beat him. So there are questions still on Paddy. I'm happy to be here for the test. Let's move him up. Let's see what happens. I could certainly believe he is an improved fighter from those Cage Warriors losses, but it's time to see.
Okay. Omar, what about you? What were your impressions of Paddy's performance and from the show that right now is Paddy the Baddy?
I don't disagree with anything that Mark said just now. I don't disagree with a thing. The only thing I would say is I don't give a shit. I am having a hell of a time. I'm riding the wave, man. You know how when you're in waters that you're pretty sure there's sharks in, but you're like, I want to surf anyway because it's a good time. It's kind of where I'm at this point. I enjoyed the Paddy show, man. It's a fantastic time. This really was the first time that I really felt that like Conor-like energy on the rise up. Granted, we can argue whether it warrants as much hype as Conor did because Conor was way more dominant, way more technical frankly just a better overall fighter. But one could also argue that his ground game wasn't as elite as maybe Paddy's is in the way that his striking was and Paddy's isn't. We could debate that all day. The point is that Paddy is a star. Paddy brings eyes. Paddy is a very charismatic guy. He comes from, Liverpool, from the ghettos of Liverpool. And so he can relate to a lot of the guys who are still struggling out there, like kind of the everyman, which is what Conor was when he first started. Conor was that guy for everybody. He's like, I'm going to fight for you guys, for everybody who can't get in the cage, for everybody who can't do this. Like, I'm going to go in the cage and I'm going to do this for everybody. And then he made millions of dollars and he said, fuck everybody. but I digress. As far as the performance is concerned, yeah, that's as sloppy as striking as you get. I tell you right now, if that was Topuria, Paddy would be face down in a pool of his own blood from a nose that was shattered to hell. Like, Paddy needs to figure that part out. The judo throw, epic. That's about as good as judo throws really get in the UFC in the middle of an MMA fight. I think the only person who's ever pulled off anything judo worthy other than that, or other than a simple judo throw here and there, has been Ronda, who does like crazy ass things with her judo. The grappling is disgusting. If you watch anybody who grapples in the UFC, a lot of times their grappling doesn't actually advance with purpose to a submission. Paddy being able to see his way from A to Z in the middle of a grappling exchange, I think is elite by itself. And there are other elite grapplers that do that just as good, if not better than he does. But he definitely stacks up. One would argue that even Damian Maia, towards the end of his career, couldn't even find his way from A to Z and just kind of got stuck somewhere in J and just chilled out there. So I love the way that Paddy grapples. I love the way that Paddy brings the fight, for better or worse, with his chin. But man, I haven't had this much fun watching this whole little crew of the UK guys in like a long time.
No, it's fun.
Yeah,
his
point...
walkout is special.
Yeah.
What was his walkout song?
It's that mix. He's been walking out to that mix for like his whole career.
But they all get into
wedding music.
That one.
Yeah.
And then it goes into like a similar version of this thing.
Yeah, it's like a wedding reception at a UFC event.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, man, listening to that UK crowd is something else. And I was texting you guys. I found out. So last week we were talking about how every crowd kind of has like their thing. The Brazilians like to chant and root for their guys, super, patriotic about the guys and stuff like that. The UK, I now realize, are there from the first fight of the prelims all the way through to the last fight. If you go to any fight in the U.S., I haven't been anywhere outside of the U.S., but if you go to any fight in the U.S., there's maybe 10%, 15% of the people that should be there during the prelims. It's not until maybe the last 3-4 fights where the house is completely packed from head to toe, especially if it's a sold-out arena. UK's like, nah, son. Fight one. We're in there. We're making noise. We sell out. Right. We sell out right.
We're already 4 beers deep.
Dude, I gotta do that one day, man. One day.
Absolutely. I see there are similarities and there are not similarities between the rise of Conor and the rise of Paddy. First of all, to Mark's point, Conor never got touched until he fought like Khabib. You know what I mean? It's like every fight that Paddy's been in so far that we've watched on this big stage, the guy gets kind of touched up a little bit. But he's tough enough. He has a good chin, clearly. Yeah. Like Conor, Paddy does have like one gaping hole in his game. And what is different too I feel like there's also a little bit of a shift in how fighters are being brought up. Whereas Conor, the criticism against Conor when he was coming up was like, oh, the UFC's giving him preferential treatment. They're shooting him up the rankings. He's shooting past all these guys that he's not fighting, that he doesn't have to fight, all these wrestlers that he's not getting matched up against. That was his criticism. These guys like Paddy, also guys like Sean O'Malley, is the exact opposite is happening. And they're getting criticized for this too, is that they're getting criticized for not having to fight tougher and tougher opponents. Sean O'Malley has come out and said, and Paddy has also echoed similar sentiments of like, why should I go fight a top 15 guy? Let me keep fighting unranked guys. I'm going to keep styling. I'm already a huge star. And, like, those big fights will come, but I'm going to stay right here and do what I'm doing. I think Paddy had said, like, I'll fight bigger opponents if I renegotiate my contract.
Yeah, and it's honestly it's a great plan when you really think about it. Most of the contracts when guys come in for the first time usually don't exceed a 4-fight contract, and so if Paddy just keeps whipping out these cans and there's 4 cans that are just knocked out of the row, he's got numbers up the ass, he's got performance bonuses for each one or something like that. Who's to say that his next contract won't be worth more than half the guys that have probably been in the UFC now for a minute? And then it'd be worth it to go into the top 15. I honestly don't hate the way that Sean O'Malley and Paddy Pimblett have been taking, that route.
Sure.
I think that should be the way to go, especially if you've already got a name built up for yourself. You might as well take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, they'll take advantage of them.
So O'Malley did it in a way that made some more sense. I just want to point this out for people who may not realize how many people are in the lightweight division. The 2 people Paddy Pimblett has fought, Luigi Vendramini and Rodrigo Kazula Vargas, they call him. His real name's Rodrigo. In my lightweight rankings, Vendramini is 72 and Vargas is 71. So there is quite a lot of room before we get to the top 15 for guys that Paddy Pimblett can be fighting.
That's true. Lightweight has always been the most stacked division.
Where do you have Paddy in yours then?
63.
We'll get there. Yeah. But yeah. There you go.
Interesting.
And the only other thing I'll say about the differences between Paddy and Conor, the guy who he is compared to so much, is that Conor was way cooler on his rise to stardom and fame. Conor was always
different like that.
Still to this, like, Conor's cool. Like, Conor's, especially when Conor succeeded more and more and started getting more money, it's like the Conor brand. Conor's like, I'm rich, I'm successful, like, I have style, I wear great clothes. Paddy is nothing like. Paddy's kind of like silly. Yeah, Paddy's like silly and like weird, and he's like kind of fights wild. Yes. He's just kind of like a dude from Liverpool who just kind of acts crazy.
Walk out. Like
he acts crazy,
walking out like that. No way.
Right? He acts like a weirdo. He's like, I'm Conor. I'm the new Conor.
Yeah. I'll tell you where he's
very
screwed
different
himself.
Personalities.
Because now his hair is now part of his persona. It's part of his brand. Yes. Now,
Paddy, you mean
that asshole can't cut his hair for the rest of his life. Because if he comes out now with some sort of normal haircut within the next 5 to 10 years, people are going to be like, who the hell is that? And there he goes from there. It's going to be done.
Yeah, it's a combination of all definitely his unique haircut. The dude woke up. It's like somebody needs to tell him that, like, he needs to send his haircut back to the 1960s. And it's his hair for sure. It's his look. It's his name, Paddy Pimblett. He's got the alliteration, Paddy the Baddie. He has an amazing nickname to go with his name.
It is.
He got this
also
kind of very unique package about him.
Anybody who has those accents, I mean, they're just instant.
Liverpool, yeah,
listen,
man.
I love the accent from everyone, from Molly, from Darren Till, from Paddy Pimblett. Anybody that talks like that, I'm almost immediately on board because they already sound cooler.
Yeah, man. Let's go on. That being said, where do we see Paddy going next? Let's pick it up a little bit. Omar, give me a name. Give me a lightweight name. Where do you want to see him go next?
I mean, I definitely want to see him go above 71. I'll tell you that. If we want to go slow, I guess the next person I would probably go up against, just based on where he is in the rankings, I would say you could go Jamie Malarkey, but to be fair, a fun one for me would probably be John McDessie. A John McDessie fight, I think, would be one. That's a guy who's kind of been in the UFC's, but been kind of proven. Not a top 15 fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but does have a name. Might do Paddy some good to go in that direction.
Okay, Mark, hit me. Give me the name. What's next for Paddy?
I almost picked John McDessie. There you go. But yeah, I mean, first off, obviously we have the Ilia Topuria rivalry that has been thrust into our laps here. So it's very easy to say that you have to make that fight, and it wouldn't shock me if it does get made. But that is a hell of a step up for Paddy Pimblett, and for that reason, I think they're going to find a way to not make that fight because I think the UFC knows that. Yeah. Paddy's trying to act like he's above Topuria, and maybe he is in star power, but in fighting in a cage, Topuria would absolutely be the betting favorite if they ever fought. But anyway, I have a feeling that we're not going to go that route. If we're logically matchmaking Paddy, I think you could give him either the type of jump Omar just mentioned, like the gradual step up. I almost picked McDessie for that. Instead, I went with Matt Frivola. I think could work. Or I think if you want, because of his star, you could kind of skip that level and go more to like the established vet level and throw him in there with like Clay Guida or Jim Miller or Rick Glenn or one of these guys who are just battle tested, going to test you everywhere, not going to go away. I feel like if he beat one of them, it would say a lot for him. So depends if you want to go smaller step or bigger step, but I think those are the options.
Alrighty. And for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the welterweight division. Gunnar Nelson took a unanimous decision victory over Takashi Sato, earning a 30-26 on all three judges' scorecards. Omar, let me send it over to you. First time we've seen Gunny Nelson in a little while. What was your opinion of his performance?
So I don't want to be super critical about his performance because it has been a while since he's been back, and I want to. It's possible that might have played into his performance overall. I'm glad that he won. I'm glad that he found a route that worked for him, but his striking was ineffective, to say the least. There used to be a real accuracy to the way he struck. There used to be real explosiveness to the way he struck. And it just seemed like he didn't have a real handle on his distance that entire night. His kicks looked very sloppy and almost labored in the way that he threw them. His ground game was really the one thing that looked decent and strong, and that's always, I feel like, been Gunnar's bread and butter. But his striking looked less than great. And, and it does concern me going forward. I hope that he kind of figures that out. But there were a lot of times where he was getting so close for a punch that I was like, bro, just throw an elbow at that point. You might as well just throw an elbow because you're not even in range for a punch. And they weren't landing properly. They were not extended all the way. He wasn't really doing anything with them. He was barely actually hitting him clean. Yeah, it was a little disappointing. I think I expected more out of Gunnar from that fight, and we didn't get a whole hell of a lot out of him there.
Mark, what were your impressions of the return of Gunny Nelson?
So it was nice to see Gunnar back in there doing his thing. It's been a long time. And we actually had different takes. I thought he looked the same, really. I almost want to go watch it again after hearing your take now and see if maybe I wasn't watching with enough of a critical eye. But to me, I thought Gunnar was still Gunnar. He still closed the distance really fast with that karate style that he has. He still had incredible control and calm on the mat. Yes, he couldn't get the finish, but he even alluded to it after the fight. And I agree that Sato was so focused on protecting his neck and just being content to lose every single round that there wasn't really any opportunity for Gunnar. If Sato had tried at all to get up and actually try to win, then maybe things change and Gunnar can snatch a neck or who knows what else. But Sato was very content to just lay there every round and not get choked out. So either way, Sato's whole game was nullified, which is something that Gunnar has always kind of tended to be able to do to people is nullify their game. So yeah, not the flashiest win ever, but it was a very clear win for him in his return, and I'm glad he's back.
Staying with you, Mark, give me a name at welterweight. Where do you want to see Gunnar Nelson go next?
He's another one just because he just came back. I don't know how quick they want to move him. So I'll give you two options on him too. If it's quick, I love the idea I've floated on here before, which is matching up him and Michael Chiesa. I just think that's such a fun grappling matchup. If it's not that we're going to jump to that level immediately, then I think I would go like Nico Price. He just feels like the perfect test to like gauge where someone is at after 2 years gone, because he's going to put you in a scrap in every kind of a way that he can. So I think he's a good one.
Yeah, we would call that fight fire and ice. Such different personalities in the cage there. Omar, what about you? Give me a welterweight name that you would want to see Gunny Nelson match up with next.
Yeah, so Nico Price is a fantastic matchup, but I'll give you another one just to have something different. A Daniel Rodriguez fight I think would be super interesting. I think more so in my head just for Daniel Rodriguez rather than for Gunny. But Daniel's a lot higher in the rankings at this point, at least online, than Gunny is, so it would definitely be a good fight for him, but Daniel Rodriguez would have an opportunity to really shine if he did something on Gunnar Nelson.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Okay, moving on to the women's flyweight division. Molly Meatball McCann in what is arguably the best finish of the night, knocked out cold Luana Carolina by spinning elbow in round number 3. The official time coming at 1 minute and 52 seconds of the final round. Mark, let me start with you this time. Woo! What was your take on that spectacular finish by Molly McCann?
Who was the bigger star on Saturday night? Paddy Pimblett or Molly friggin' McCann?
They are a pair, the two of them.
I mean, my God, talk about seizing the moment. I mean, Meatball Molly had herself a night. First off, McCann is a friggin' tank. She will walk you down all fight if you let her. She's almost always at a reach disadvantage, but her head movement is so good that it lets her kind of get inside and negate that. And she friggin' brought it to Luana Carolina all fight long. And that knockout was a thing of beauty. You cannot pull off a spinning elbow much more perfectly than that. For me, I think that was the knockout of the night on a card that had some pretty good ones. And it was also the second consecutive knockout following Topuria's, which we'll get to in a minute, where somebody's body was just twisted around from the impact of the strike, just illustrating how nuts this card was, one after the other. But so I will say I did not love Molly parading around with a fake plastic belt that she snagged out of the crowd. I thought that was super corny. And I don't really like anyone getting to have the visual of like marching around the cage holding a belt when they aren't the champ or even close to being the champ for that matter. So I could have done without that. But all the rest of it, the interview, the support of Paddy in her own interview, getting the crowd to chant Paddy the Baddie, ending up back in the cage later to celebrate with Paddy when he wins his own fight. I mean, it was a hell of a night for Molly McCann. Her star like quintupled off of that. And she's like in Paddy territory now. Her star is so much bigger than her skills have dictated it should be. But here we are.
Yeah, man. Omar, what was your take on Meatball's performance?
Yeah, so like I said, it was spinning back elbow day at the gym, man, as a result of Molly Meatball's performance. I mean, it was beautiful. Part of it, I think one of the things that I was noticing while I was watching the fight, because that fight did end up, going all the way to the third round, was Luana is her first name?
Yep.
Luana threw a lot of volume, but there wasn't a lot of power behind a lot of her strikes. A little bit of mix-up here and there would have probably deterred Molly from taking so much time to just aim and fire that elbow. Because if you go back and you watch that, a lot of that actually reminded me of when Garbrandt did like a 3-second movement in front of a Sun Sao and then knocked him clean cold. And it's like, bro, what were you doing this whole time? You didn't see that coming? And it was kind of the same thing with Molly. She was just kind of standing there. She was kind of aiming, looking back. And then she fired when she saw the opportunity. It was a hell of an elbow, though, man. You literally can't place those elbows any better than that. Girl folded. I was in Wild Wings, by the way, and I'm pretty sure I yelled out, "She's dead." And I'm pretty sure everybody that was in Wild Wings, because nobody was there for this fight. Remember, this is the middle of the day. So there's no one there. There might be 5-6 tables that are there, and none of them are there watching the fight. I had to ask for the fight to get put on. So I'm the only one watching this fight at the bar with my wife, and definitely yelled out, "She's dead," and they were all watching the UFC after that. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a scary one, man. It was.
Her
eyes were open.
Dude, she didn't get up. I mean, they announced the win and everything, and she was still knocked out. Like, it was.
Oh my God.
It was scary. I texted you guys earlier that they did update her. She's in the hospital. She's good. She wasn't good, when it was going on. When they took her out, she was super disoriented, didn't really know where she was. But all in all, she seems to be in good health.
Any names that you want to see Meatball McCann match up with next, Omar?
Whew.
Looking at the women's flyweight division.
I mean,
maybe not the rankings, but any names at all.
Let's see.
Or Mark, if you want to throw one out first, go ahead.
Yeah,
Mark.
sure. I reward her big time for the show that she just put on. Her resume maybe doesn't call for a step up as big as this one. I don't remember if this girl is still ranked, but if she's not, she's right on the edge. But I think I'd go Macy Barber I know Macy has a fight with Montana de la Rosa lined up, but I think this works regardless of the outcome in that one. I'm trying to give Molly a fight against a bigger name in the type of matchup where maybe she could come through as the underdog. I think she's earned that, and that's where I'd go.
Okay. How about you, buddy?
You know, as much fun as we had with Molly McCann this weekend, I also am not super sure how good she actually is overall. And so it does concern me to throw her in with a lot of these girls towards the top because my initial thought was Miranda Maverick.
Oh, that was mine.
Yeah, I think that would be a really interesting fight. But I feel like Miranda Maverick would have the edge there. But I guess that would be the whole fun of it, right? Is to see if Molly can edge out somebody who's more technical than she is.
That's why I picked Macy, because I thought she was more beatable than Maverick.
I would hate
shot at a win.
I would hate for Miranda to lose again though after just getting that one win. Now to gotta get her back on track. But
Yeah.
I gotta say it's an interesting fight.
Yeah, it is.
For sure. Okay, moving on. Keeping this thing rolling along. Well, we have another good one. Oh, maybe the best one. In the lightweight division, Ilia El Matador Topuria knocks out Jai Herbert at round number 2. The official time, 1 minute, 7 seconds. Whew! Another candidate for a knockout of the night in which someone's soul was taken. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What was your impression of this huge win by El Matador, Ilia Topuria?
A lot of trips to the Shadow Realm this past Saturday. A lot. This was a scary win, man. Last week when we were talking about this fight, there were a lot of variables that I was talking about. One of which is, how does Ilia react to guys who might be, size-wise a little bit taller, maybe a little bit bigger. I don't necessarily think from a weight perspective he was going to be out strengthened. But at the same time, yeah, at the same time, it's not going to be obviously the same ride as he was having at featherweight. When I was watching it and I was talking to my wife about it, it seemed like one of those things where Ilia Topuria's technique would definitely let him win most fights, I feel like, at 155. The problem I have is the amount of damage he's going to take at 155 versus the damage he's going to take at 145. The challenges are a little bit different, and you can see that from the first round in the Jai Herbert fight. Jai Herbert is a very aggressive fighter, a very forward fighter, but at the same time, he's not the best fighter in 155. Very far from it. And so seeing the holes that were presented in Ilia's game, on top of the fact that he wasn't able to just take him down and just work him the way he was used to. Jai is also, again, not the best takedown defense artist that we've seen. It gets better from there. It just seems like you're going to be presented with a lot of the same. You're coming in basically with the same attributes as you did at 145, but you're losing kind of the dominance that you had at 145 because these guys are a little bit bigger than what you were facing before. So while I think Ilia could win, he's going to eat a lot of shit before he does. And I just don't know if that's really the best way to use his time right now. He's doing very well at 145. He can keep going and potentially fight for a title within the next year or so. It just seems wild to take all this damage at 155 for what? I don't honestly see him beating anybody in the top 5 at 155.
What's the story here? Is he staying at lightweight?
I don't know if this was a one-shot deal.
He missed weight very badly in his last fight and had to get pulled from it. I don't even think he got to weigh in. The weight cut went bad and he got pulled. So he fought at lightweight for this fight. I was under the impression that he was just saying, I need to be a lightweight. The way they were talking about it on the broadcast, they were kind of, even before the fight started, saying like, we know he should be a featherweight. So maybe it was just he wanted to get a one-off to get a fight in and like get his weight refigured out, and he's still planning to be a featherweight. So I'm hoping that it's the latter.
Yeah.
It should be mentioned though that the combination that he used to put Jai Herbert out, you could put that shit right in a textbook. I mean, it was as beautiful as that combo gets.
Yeah, man. Mark, Let me throw it over to you. What was your impression of this great performance by Topuria?
This fight was nuts. I mean, just the swings in it. Like you have Ilia Topuria, undefeated, huge prospect, almost KO'd by a head kick practically immediately. And then you have him looking like he's even in more trouble later in the round. And then you have him committing a murder. and reminding everyone how good he is. I mean, this is the one where I thought someone was dead. Like, he folded so bad that I was very concerned. But yeah, it was a wild sequence of events, the way that fight played out. And yes, Topuria got it done. All credit to him. But as Omar was saying, as we were just saying, I do not think Ilia Topuria is a lightweight. I know Herbert is extra long for lightweights, but Topuria looked little in there lengthwise and really struggled with that reach. He was getting clipped repeatedly. Everything was landing for Jai, punches, kicks, knees. It was going very badly for Topuria until it wasn't. Obviously, he was tough enough to withstand it, but you go up the ladder at lightweight, you might not be. So, of course, Topuria salvaged the day. That knockout was legitimately scary. The left to the body, right over the top to the chin, turned Herbert's whole body off. We know how good Ilia Topuria is, but I would really much rather see him back at featherweight. I think his frame prevents his ceiling from being anywhere near as close to as high in the lightweight division as it would have been in the featherweight division. And I'd love to see him get with a nutritionist. I can't speak tonight. Or whatever he needs to do and nail down that cut to 145 so we can see his true potential, because I firmly believe it's at that weight class.
Okay, sticking with you, Mark, looking at the rankings of featherweight, because Topuria's right there. He's knocking on the rankings. Where do you see him going next in terms of his next opponent?
So again,
if it was at featherweight, I'm sorry. If it was at featherweight.
Well, so just real quick, as we mentioned earlier, I know we have the Paddy thing, so who knows if that's going to happen or not. Obviously, for Topuria's name and his pockets, that would be huge. But again, I don't think it is going to happen. If he is going to go back to 145, he was ranked when he left. There's no reason for him to not be fighting a ranked fighter there. Apparently, he's still ranked. They haven't even taken him out of the rankings. So I would line him up with the winner of the Dan Ige and I always forget to say his first name, Mavsar. I don't know if that's right. Valiev fight that is happening soon. So yeah, winner of Ige Valiev, I think, would be great for Topuria. If he's gonna stay at 155, I mentioned this last week. I think Drew Dober is a really good test to see exactly where he's going to stack up in this division. But I hope he goes back down.
Okay, Omar, what about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say Valiev as well, or even Bryce Mitchell. I know it might be a little weird for Bryce Mitchell to take a fight like that, but stylistically, I think it'd be a very interesting fight. On the lightweight side, if I did have to go with one, I think Bobby Green would be a fun fight. I think it presents a very interesting challenge when it comes to the takedown defense, especially for him having lost recently to Islam, kind of in that way. So I think it'd be a nice way for him to kind of get a little bit of what is it, retribution? That's not the right word. I don't know. There was a nice word in there somewhere. It started with an R. Can't remember. But it'd be a nice fight for him to have. I think it'd be great. Stylistically, it'd be a fun fight. And I don't know if Bobby Green is going to get slept, so just see what Ilia has in the tank for 155.
Man, there's so many guys that I would love for him to match up with at featherweight. Pretty much everybody else at featherweight. I think Topuria is a handful. I would love to see him fight Burgos. I would love to see him fight Barboza. I think that would be a great test.
God, I would hate him to fight Burgos. I just feel like he's going to take him down for the entire fight, and Burgos will have zero response.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see him fight Dan Ige.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Second it. All right, let's move on. Congrats to Ilia Topuria for claiming another scalp. Okay, in the featherweight division, Makwan, Mr. Finland, Amirkhani, round one submission via anaconda choke over Mike Grundy. The official time, 57 seconds of round number one. Omar, let me start with you. What was your impression of this great finish by Amirkhani?
Yeah, very dominant performance from beginning to end. I don't even think it got very far to begin with. Once Amirkhani had his arms around Grundy's neck, it was pretty much done. The sad part about this whole thing was that Mike Grundy's dad, who's unfortunately recently diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I thought you were just saying how sad he looked.
No, that was the whole thing. God. He has terminal cancer, so
Christ.
He was there, to see his boy win, or Jesus Christ, at least perform. Poor dude didn't even like.
Fast fight,
it wasn't even a fight. He got caught. Almost immediately, and Amirkhani just didn't let go, man. And to his credit, there were a few moments where most people probably would have let go. but he stayed on it. He adjusted. He was able to get, he started, I think, with a guillotine, ended up with an anaconda choke. A lot of little transitions with the arms that were just significant in the way he ended that fight. And it was a fantastic performance. Just real bad luck for Grundy, man. Real bad luck.
Mark, do it.
So Makwan Amirkhani has his faults for sure, as we've discussed on here, his cardio and his tendency to fade after round one and all that. But if he gets his hands around your neck, oh boy, you are in trouble. It is amazing how good he is at chokes. Grundy didn't even look like he took a bad shot. And then even once Amirkhani got the neck, it didn't look like Grundy should have been in trouble. But you can see Amirkhani make his adjustmts bit by bit, and that combined with his squeeze, next thing you know, Grundy's sleeping. It's a great win for Amirkhani. He's so dangerous if you give him a chance to snatch something up on you. As he said, he had lost 3 straight, so he needed it bad, and we'll see if he can manage to start another run here.
For sure. Staying with you, Mark, again, what do you see next for Amirkhani in terms of his next opponent?
I'd like to see him and Alex Caceres get in there. I think that would just make a real fun and potentially crazy matchup. I think it works right now with Caceres coming off a loss. That's where I'd go.
Omar, you got a name at featherweight?
I would actually like to see him against Billy Quarantillo. I'll get there. Billy Quarantillo, I think, would actually be a fun fight. Stylistically, I think they match up really well, and I'm pretty sure that'll end up being a banger one way or the other.
Yeah, I like that fight.
Nice. Okay, in the heavyweight division, Sergei Pavlovich, round 1, TKO over Shamil Abdurakhimov. Official time, 4 minutes and 3 seconds of round number 1. Mark, let me start with you this time. What was your impressions of Pavlovich's performance?
So Sergei is a savage. Certainly not going to take anything away from him, but I got to say, I didn't love that stoppage. Abdurakhimov had just started getting up. He had gotten to a knee. He was even looking up, which obviously you're not doing if you're like dazed. He was trying to get up, which shows you that he was okay. So personally, I would have liked to see a few more seconds there. I understand bombs were landing, but if the guy is showing you he's fine, I need to at least see a few more. So I didn't love it. But either way, Pavlovich has arrived. Maybe in 20 more seconds, he would have gotten him out of there more clearly. He is a physical monster. He's got huge power, and he's going to be a tough night for anybody.
Omar, what'd you take?
I'm just thinking about Mark if he saw the referee after that fight. But did he die? Why did you stop the fight?
I guess you didn't agree.
No, look, I mean, after a certain point, a certain amount of unanswered punches, especially when you're kind of turtled up. I mean, we've seen it before. It's not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. We've also seen stoppages exactly like that happen all the time. It is what it is. I didn't really see that fight going anywhere else as far as that was going anyway. So
yeah, neither did I.
Yeah, Pavlovich is a scary, scary man. First of all, physically, that man is terrifying. That man is probably one of the biggest human beings I've seen in MMA. Well, in elite MMA, I should say. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much you can say other than he's a scary dude. His striking is absolutely terrifying. His ability to stay up off the ground is effective. I didn't really have a ton of expectations for Abdurakhimov personally. So I was just really impressed with the fact that Pavlovich was able to get it done the way he was able to get it done.
Okay. Let's talk about where Pavlovich goes from here. Mark, give me a name. Take a look at the heavyweight picture right now. What do you want to see next for the Russian?
I gave you guys my matchup for him earlier. I'm going Alexander Volkov. He has already been in there with Overeem, so he has felt that level of top competition before. I think he's earned another shot at it, and I think it's a great matchup.
Omar, what about you?
Yeah, it's not a bad call, especially like we were talking about earlier, that heavyweight is very top heavy and also very much in flux right now. So there's not a ton of guys that are available as of right now to just pick out of nowhere. And especially with the losses, it's like hard. Like for example, Walt Harris for me would be a fantastic test to see where he's at, especially when it comes to this ground game. Walt Harris was to me still a very dangerous striker and very elite wrestler, but he's had a lot of bad luck lately, and having a guy on the rise against somebody like him may not be the best actual matchup at this moment, but that is a fight that really interests me. Also, a fight with Sergei Spivak would also be an interesting fight as well. But again, I don't hate the Volkov fight. And I think Volkov is getting to a point where I don't even know if he really belongs all the way up there. And I do want to see if people are able to move him down as they move their way up.
I'd like to see him fight Rosenstrike. That'd be an interesting matchup.
Even if Rosenstrike beats Tibura? I mean, sorry, even if Rosenstrike loses to Tibura, I meant to say.
I forget that was the matchup has been made. My apologies.
Oh, I was thinking that's on this card, but it isn't. I don't know why I was thinking that, but that's
Okay.
soon.
That's
what I
they
was
did
thinking
have
you
it. They
needed.
must have moved it because they don't have it.
No, it's not on this card. I don't know why I was thinking that for a second.
Moved to April 9th. April 9th.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's keep this train rolling, boys. In the light heavyweight division, Paul, what's his nickname? Bearju? Bearju. Paul Bearju Craig from Scotland defeats Nikita Krylov by submission via triangle choke at 3 minutes, 57 seconds of round number 1. Omar, let me throw it to you first. What was your impression from one of my favorite submission victories that I've seen in a while?
How can you not love Paul Craig? I mean, the man gets his ass beat for I don't know, a majority of that round. It's basically on the floor. Their commentary booth is shitting all over him. Can't do this. You can't fight this way. Paul Craig loves to stay on the ground, but you can't do this. Michael Bisping giving his take. He loves to be on the ground, but you can't win fights like that. It's a little more Dan Hardy than I wanted, to be honest. A little more Dan Hardy. But it's one of those things that Paul Craig does what Paul Craig does. You may not like it. You may not agree with it. He may do it in a way that upsets you as a fighter, but at the end of the day, he's going to come out with a win. And he made Nikita Krylov's last moments look so like it was his fault that he got choked out, because he's going for ground and pound. He's doing an effective job as far as I'm concerned, trying not to get up kicked. And he has one little lazy backhand that he throws right in there, and the one lazy backhand got him caught in a triangle that he did not get out of. You can't not love Paul Craig. If you love MMA, you have to love Paul Craig, because the man is a submission phenom. It doesn't get any better than that.
I love the guys. Sorry to cut you off. I love the guys that make submissions exciting. And Paul Craig is definitely one of them. Mark, what was your impression of Paul Craig coming off of this very impressive submission win?
So before I get into the praise of Paul Craig, I just want to clarify something for people who are watching and maybe were confused by Nikita Krylov's flag, which was a flag of nothing, and correct something that we said last week about him. So Krylov, as we mentioned, is born in Ukraine of Russian descent. He currently lives in Russia now. I think we had mentioned that he was against the attacks in Ukraine, but that is very much not the case. He has actually declined to give any comment on where he stands and been very adamant about not wanting to give a comment.
Okay.
And he was so concerned with not wanting to appear that he was on one side or the other that he asked the UFC to let him compete under a neutral flag and in neutral shorts. Whoa. So that's why he had that weird flag next to him and all of that. And if you notice, they didn't even announce where he was fighting out of or from or anything. They just went height, weight, Nikita Krylov. So I thought that was interesting. Moving to the fight. Obviously, it wasn't Krylov that initiated bringing it to the mat. Craig caught that opening kick, and that's kind of just where they ended up. And yes, Krylov was doing well. He was doing really well. But there is just zero reason to stay there as long as he did. All of the risk in fighting Paul Craig is there. Let the fight stand up. It is highly unlikely that Craig is going to beat you there. And he's not some great takedown artist either. It's just not smart to hang out with him that long on the ground. And we've hit that point with Craig now, especially after this one, where he has just become a zero engage on the ground. You just don't do it. You step away, because that's what's going to happen to you. How friggin' fast was that triangle locked up? My God, if you blinked, you missed it. That was one of the fastest triangles I've ever seen. So Paul Craig does it again. Great win. And yeah, we officially add him to the do not engage on the ground list, no matter what.
Definitely was a risky game plan by Paul Craig, but on the other hand, it was exactly what he wanted. And like Omar was saying, the commentary table was definitely criticizing him quite a bit for this game plan, but he was definitely, I thought clearly, was waiting for the moment where Krylov got a little too distracted with trying to punch him in the face, and looked for his opening to throw up those legs. And I, like you just said, Mark, I rewound it like 3 times to watch that moment that that opening of when he got that right leg in that spot with his foot on the hip. Until what was it, a short elbow or something like that, a sloppy elbow that he threw in there?
It was a weird back fist. Yeah.
Oh man, thing of beauty. That's exactly what he was hunting for. His bell was still not quite rung enough. He still had his wits about him, and impressive stuff, and entertaining to say the least.
Real quick, because the thing about Krylov not supporting the war kind of threw me off, because so it does say it, and it has changed now on his profile on his wiki page, but the original source basically came from an Instagram post that he posted of him wearing a shirt that said "fuck war" in Russian 7 years prior to what's going on today, and he posted the post back in February.
Okay.
And the post basically said, "I made my post on Instagram 7 years ago, but few people supported me then." So I think a lot of inferences were taken from that Instagram post because he was referencing the current war that was going on. But you're right. He hasn't made anything specific about, being one way or the other. And it seems like he has kind of supported the Russians, but maybe not the Russian government. And
I wonder if it's that he would like to be against it, but that he lives in Russia, so he can't.
It's very possible. Yeah, because they're doing some weird Big Brother shit over there in Russia right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, he probably wore that shirt. If it was 7 years ago, that would be 2014-ish. So he probably was wearing that as a reaction to when Russia invaded Crimea, which I believe was in 2014.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
was, I think, what was his name? The stuff that Ilia Topuria was referring to as well. That time frame that Paddy Pimblett was talking shit about. Then in reference to the Georgians and stuff like that.
Yeah. He's in a tough spot, man. And even taking down the Russian flag from his, intro or his profile or whatever.
It's got to be rough.
That's got to be rough. That itself isn't probably going to sit well with certain people in his community, in his state, in his country. So, good luck to him.
Yeah.
But let's keep this thing rolling. Speaking back to Paul Craig, the Scotsman, Mark, give me a name of where you want to see Bear Jew go next at light heavy.
Yeah, so we had a 3-man matchmaking problem that we mentioned at featherweight before. I feel like we have the same thing at light heavyweight. You have Magomed Ankalaev, Anthony Smith, and Paul Craig, and only 2 of them can fight each other. You have Jan and Rakic, you have Glover and Prohaska, so I feel like it's going to have to be a booking from those 3 guys. I got to assume it's going to involve Anthony Smith because I don't think they're going to go back to Ankalaev and Craig that quickly. So maybe Craig gets Anthony Smith, but if they do go with Smith and Ankalaev, then Craig may just have to wait and see what happens around him because I feel like anyone else feels like less than he deserves right now since it's some guys on losing streaks and stuff. So not the easiest matchmaking job.
Omar, what about you?
Yeah, definitely not easy. Just from a time frame perspective, just based on the fact that Ankalaev fought recently, Paul Craig just fought recently, you could probably say that they would be lined up to fight each other relatively soon. I would say in the next few months. I don't think either one of them really took a ton of damage. They probably just need to have another camp and go from there. So stylistically, Ankalaev versus Craig is probably way more exciting than an Anthony Smith fight. And I would be way more interested at this point to see Anthony Smith fight Dominic Reyes. It may not make a lot of sense. The reality is there's a lot of log jams that are in there, but the reality is stylistically that fight is interesting. They haven't fought each other yet, and it would complete the everybody in the top 10 basically having something scheduled for the most part.
Why do you think that Ankalaev is more entertaining matchup than Smith? You just think Smith's styles on him on the feet?
Just no, stylistically, I think there's just a lot more danger to the way that Ankalaev likes to play his game. Ankalaev won't mind necessarily taking it to the ground. That we've seen him do it before, but at the same time, I just think the same thing could probably happen again. He gets choked out. Just where he's at now is very interesting.
Ankalaev would probably be down to try to avenge the only loss on his record.
It's an interesting fight, an interesting time to have that rematch.
Okay. Moving right along to the bantamweight division, Jack Shore scored a unanimous decision victory over Timur Valiev, earning a 29-28, 29-28, and 29-27 on the judges' scorecards. Omar, let me start with you. What was your impression of Jack Shore's unanimous decision win?
Jack Shore is a monster, and Valiev is way too tough for his own good. Valiev took some shots that night, and Jack Shore is a beast. I want to say I had it 1-1 going into the third, and I want to say the second round is really where Valiev got lit up, and then the third round it just kind of kept going from there. But Valiev should have been put out at least 3 times in that fight, and never did. I mean, the chin on him is absolutely crazy. The fact that after the fight he looked like he was perfectly fine was also absolutely ridiculous. I would love to see more of Jack Shore, but Valiev is very interesting. I would hope that there's some more technique to come behind all that toughness.
Mark, what's your take on the Tank's win?
This was a really close and competitive fight through the first 2 rounds, and even still competitive in the third, to be honest. Like, Shore was clearly dominating the third. I guess I can't say competitive and dominated in the same sense, but my point is people were saying they thought the third was a 10-8. I didn't see that at all. Like, Valiev had his moments even still. I thought it was a simple 10-9 round. But both guys are so good. They never accepted a bad position the whole fight. Each guy had his moments throughout. I loved Jack Shore's getup in round 1 where he went to the butterfly guard and then used the body lock to stand straight up. That was just one of the many high-level moments in that fight from these guys. But I did think Valiev edged round 1. I thought Shore just edged round 2. And then obviously Shore had a huge third round, dropped Valiev twice in it. And I'm glad the decision went his way because I was a little afraid Valiev was going to get 1 and 2 and possibly win the cards. Whereas obviously Shore won the overall fight on the back of that third round. So I'm glad the decision did go to Jack Shore because he deserved it.
All right, guys, take a look. Let's talk about the next opponent for Mr. Jack Shore. Take a look at the bantamweight rankings. Mark, let me start with you and stay with you rather. What would you say would be next for Jack Tank Shore in the bantamweight division?
Dare I say, let's make Jack Shore and Kyler Phillips.
Oh,
part of me feels like we are killing a hot prospect for no reason in that fight when we could just match each of them up with someone else. But God, that would be a fun ass fight. If not him, maybe even go further up the rankings and throw him in there with a Pedro Munez. I mean, he's lost 4 out of 5. Let's see if he can turn back Jack Shore.
Yeah, man. I want to protect Kyler Phillips at all costs because, as you know, I've compared him to Steph Curry on this podcast.
Yeah.
All right,
You got a lot writing on that one.
Omar, you put your take.
So my 2 guys right now, I would be going Ricky Simone. Stylistically, I think that'd be an interesting fight. And if you want to get a little wild, I would actually throw him in there with Umar Nurmagomedov and see who lands cleanly in that one.
Nice.
They were supposed to fight 1 fight ago, I think, and then it fell off and they booked Valiev instead.
Bring it back.
So
that's a fantastic matchup.
Been on the radar. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the to the women's strawweight division. Elise Reed split decision over Cory McKenna, earning a 29-28, 29-28, and dropping a score to McKenna 30-27. Kind of funny scoring there. Omar, what was your take on the outcome of this fight?
Yeah, I feel like so was this the fight that they had like just the scorecards were everywhere? I didn't really understand what they were watching there. I want to say I had Elise Reed winning. I definitely didn't have her winning 30-27. Whoever was watching,
She didn't even get the 30-27. It was McKenna that got the 30-27.
Yeah, whoever was watching that fight was completely screwed up. It was a solid win though, man. It was definitely a back and forth fight. I thought it was very competitive. I want to say I had it 1-1 going into the third as well. And the scorecards were just super confusing to me for sure. But definitely a solid win by Elise Reed, and I definitely want to see some more.
Mark, what was your take on the outcome? Do you think the rightful fighter won the fight?
I do think the rightful fighter won. I did think the fight was really close. It seemed like the commentary was acting like Elise Reed clearly won the first 2 rounds, but I scored round 1 like nearly dead even. Gun to my head, it was Reed's, which is why I'm saying she should get the fight. But she won 2, McKenna won 3. I thought round one was close. Commentary was not on board with me, but so I had no issue with it being a split. 30-27 for McKenna was ridiculous. But good win for Reed, and McKenna is very young. She's only 21, so she'll improve from this one.
Sticking with you, Mark. Give me a name for the winner, Elise Reed. Where's she going here next at women's strawweight?
She's only 1-1 in the UFC thus far. So I'm going to match her with fellow 1-1 flyweight, strawweight. I lost track. Strawweight. Montserrat Ruiz.
Omar, you got a name?
If I have to choose someone, so you just chose El Conejo.
Yes.
I'll go one down from now. I'll go with the Luma Lukbunmi. I think that'd be an interesting fight.
Okay. Moving on to the featherweight division, the final fight on this card that we are recapping. Muhammad the Punisher. How do you say his last name?
Makhaev, I think.
Makhaev, that's right, Makhaev. Muhammad the Punisher Makhaev, round 1 submission over Cody Durden. My man Makhaev, he set the stage. This was the opening bout of the entire fight card. My man set the stage for the entire night, getting the finish at 58 seconds of the very first round. Finishing Makhaev, he landed an amazing flying knee, transitioned immediately into a nasty guillotine that Durden was doing his best to try to scramble out of, but Makhaev would not let it go and ultimately got the tap. Mark, let me start with you. What was your impressions of this UFC debuting fighter who is staying undefeated, now 7-0 as a pro, in Makhaev?
So, as I'm sure you guys heard on the broadcast, Muhammad Makhaev was the most decorated amateur fighter to ever debut in the UFC. So I'm honestly not exactly sure what that refers to, but it sounds like he's got some amateur credentials that are a big deal. And he certainly delivered on whatever hype he had. That knee was beautiful. The grip strength through all of that to not lose the guillotine. A perfect debut for him, honestly. The London fans were loving him. He seems like he's a personality. I'm interested for sure.
Omar, what's your take on the 21-year-old getting his first win in the UFC?
Yeah, he's a scary dude, man. That performance was as dominant as it gets, especially for a debut. I want to say that he also broke a record in there as well with the time of 58 seconds for a submission. It might be the fastest, submission in a debut or something like that. I'm not entirely sure.
I think they had said fastest flyweight submission victory in a debut. One of those weird stats.
But it's still crazy. Like your first fight in the UFC, you've already broken a record. You've got a highlight on your highlight reel now at this point. He's very impressive, man. There's nothing you can really sneeze about when it came to that performance. All you can really say at this point is I want to see more. Okay.
One last time, boys. Give me a name in the flyweight division where you would want to see him go next. Omar, go first.
I'm trying to think really how far up I want to see him go, or if you take his time. He's 6-0 right now. Or 7-0 right now. He's got his first win in the UFC. I guess we'll go with 2 fights then, just to sort of get a little in there. I probably would just start him up with the guy in the top 15, the Amir Albazi. I'm not sure where the UFC has him, but Amir Albazi would probably be the first one that I would go with. He's 2-0 in the UFC right now. He's 3-0 in his last 3, obviously. The other fight that I would give him, if you're gonna get a little wild, even more wild than that, would be Tim Elliott.
Okay.
Stylistically, that would be a very interesting fight. Tim Elliott is always a fun fight, win or loss. But if we're being 100% honest, Tim Elliott is a tall order for anybody, regardless of what they've been doing for the last few years.
Okay. Mark, what about you? Give me a name. Bring it home.
I thought about Elliott just because the style interests me, but honestly, this guy's so young. He's only got 6 pro fights. I don't want to throw him in there with someone too early. So I would go with Tyson Nam. He's a similar type veteran who's seen a lot of things, and he could give a test to Makhaev, but he's not quite as good as, say, a Tim Elliott.
Okay. That being said, guys, I want to ask you one last thing. This entire fight card, UFC Fight Night, happening in London, England. Give me your favorite finish of the night.
I mean, how is it not Molly Meatball?
That's who just came into my mind.
I mean, that was a whole fatality.
I'm just scrolling. God, Paul Craig's triangle was so fucking good, though.
I mean, yes, but like Nikita Krylov got up off the canvas as soon as he let go of that triangle.
And Topuria's KO was ridiculous.
I think Luana's still asleep, guys.
I'm gonna go McCann.
She might
I'm gonna
literally
go
still
McCann.
be at a hospital somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta go McCann.
You're going McCann? I'm going Topuria.
Respect.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Priaulx, bring us home seriously by letting us know who has risen up and who has fallen down in your ranking systems, the Priaulx rankings.
All right, so I only try to tell you guys ones that are moves of more than like a few spots. That way, I'm not telling you everybody. But just for reference, Tom Aspinall is now my number 6 ranked heavyweight. It was only a 2-spot move, so he's not on my list. But just wanted to let you know that one before we move down the card. Next one moving down, Arnold Allen moves from my number 13 to number 8 featherweight. The UFC had already made this jump with him. I make it now. To be clear, I also have Zabit in my rankings, so Allen would really be 7 rather than 8 if Zabit was not in them. Obviously, he hasn't fought in quite a while, so he has entered the big time now. Next one is Sergei Pavlovich, moves from number 24 to number 10 in my heavyweight rankings. Wow. Quite a jump for Pavlovich, but Abdurakhimov was 10, and he's another guy who's entered the big time. Next one, Jack Shore was number 40 in my bantamweight rankings. He had not really fought that name yet, someone who had a resume to allow him to make the jump despite being undefeated. He does now, finally gets that W. He goes from number 40 to number 19 in my bantamweight rankings, so nipping on the heels of that top 15. And then Muhammad Mukayev was a debuting fighter, and he jumps into my flyweight rankings at number 20. Thanks to flyweight only being about 30, 35 guys deep. It feels like it's a really high number, but he goes from joining the roster to already in the realm of the rankings just off one win. And there were no noteworthy fallers on this one.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that just about does it for UFC Fight Night, Volkov versus Aspinall. What a night. I cannot wait for the next time the UFC returns to London.
Facts.
That might be the most recapping we have ever done, but it was great. And it deserved it.
It deserved it.
Absolutely.
It 100% deserved it.
Man, the best fight night in recent memory. Maybe the best fight night ever in terms of overall event. It felt like a pay-per-view. It really did.
Yes, it did.
Okay, let's go to our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere, in which Omar fills us in on the new happenings in the world of mixed martial arts.
Well, welcome. Welcome one and all. Boy, do we have some drama for you today. Right off the bat, Masvidal got gangster with Colby Covington. Story goes, I believe Monday night around 11 p.m., Masvidal and I believe 5 or 6 other guys were waiting for Colby to come out of a steakhouse called Papi Steak in Miami. And when Colby got outside, Masvidal snuck him, hit him with a 2-piece. He got one less piece of chicken than what's his name guy? Than Leon Edwards guy, you know. But his tooth was fractured apparently, and he did get clocked on the eye. And apparently there was also a wrist abrasion. I don't know why they felt the need to add that in there, but somebody heard
like a little scrape from when he like fell or something.
I don't know if that's what it was, or like if he like grabbed his wrist and like just did like an Indian burn on him, and now he's like really sad about it.
If only that was the only injury. He sustained a severe Indian burn.
So that's what happened. Masvidal decided to snitch on himself very quickly thereafter, posting on Instagram and on Twitter, basically gloating about the fact that he caught Colby. Also decided to remind him as to why this was happening, and said, "You shouldn't have talked about my kids," which I don't think anybody has really disputed at this point. So as of right now, the cops are looking into it. The whole thing is under investigation. It should be noted that Colby originally did not want his name to be out in the news media. He decided to decline having his name public through the cops, but we all knew who it was anyway. So, and there's a video of it. So that didn't last too long. But that should be noted because we know that Colby likes to call the cops and file charges on people and things like that. I don't know whatever happened to that boomerang thing, but it happened. Somebody also pointed out that it should be noted that Leon Edwards never called the cops and never pressed any charges.
That was a little different.
Maybe a little different, but the fact is, it's still kind of the same thing, give or take. It was all still, it's all still a reaction to lay street justice, whether you want to agree with how it goes down or not.
I would like to clarify that I'm almost 100% confident that it was not Colby who called the cops. I am sure it was the restaurant or other people at the restaurant.
100%. No, I totally believe that as well. I do kind of enjoy the image. Yeah. I do enjoy the image though of like Colby like running back inside of the restaurant. There's a part of me that does give me a little bit of a smile on the inside because you do wonder if this was somebody else, right? Like I've seen videos of what was he was the short Mexican fighter, very very good. I used to love him and I can't remember his name.
Henry Cejudo.
No, not him.
I'm kidding. He's American. He's American.
Well, so I can't remember his name. No. I can't remember who it was now. But
how far back in the day are we talking?
Probably mid 2000s, 2010 or so.
Miguel Torres?
No. Good pill though. Good pull.
Thank you.
It's not it though. But anyway,
is that the era?
This dude basically knocked out a 300-pound guy that was talking shit to a girl. And you're gonna tell me that like Colby just had to run back. It just, for me, there's this whole thing that Colby likes to put on, and when he finally gets checked for it, one would call it a G check. It just doesn't add up. You know what I mean? It doesn't add up. So stop talking about people's kids, and maybe you won't get punched in the middle of the street.
So I've seen mixed reactions to this online. I've seen plenty of people talk about how like Masvidal was in the right. Don't talk about the dude's kids. He's in the right to do what he did. But I've also seen people be like, look, Masvidal, the dude just had his chance for 25 minutes. He was locked in a cage with this guy who talked about his kids. And he had it like should have been it.
I will straddle both fences. Yes, I agree kind of with the 25-minute take, but I also agree that you can't talk about people's kids. And I understand why, even though he fought, Masvidal doesn't feel like it's over, because I could see my own self feeling the same way if someone said things out of line about my kids. I don't love Masvidal running up on an unsuspecting Colby with like 6 dudes, which is what we're hearing it was. I feel like that's kind of whack, but
it doesn't. And I wonder if him rolling up with 6 dudes was more of a. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm really genuinely thinking, because it seems out of the ordinary for Jorge to want other people to fight Colby for him. That doesn't really seem to be like a Jorge thing to do. But at the same time, I also think Jorge might not know who he's with. He might not know if there's other people that are there. So for him to roll up alone, he could end up getting jumped, and, rightfully so, considering he was the one going there to attack Colby. The 6 guys might have just been there as like, kind of like one big connecting dick, like, I got my boys here kind of deal.
I think you're right, because it doesn't sound like anyone else threw punches, at least from what we've read so far. Granted, the details are like very sketchy right now, so who knows?
Yeah, it seems like some kind of like hit and run mugging kind of thing. He snuck up behind him, punched him in the face twice, and then ran off. Was like, I think I heard in one of the videos he was like, I got you. Like, I got you back.
If it was a sneak attack, like, why didn't he do a running knee? Because that's what I want to see. Like,
see. So Mark went from, I'm not sure how I feel about this, to murder. Just murder him in the middle of the street. Lay him out, murder.
Nah, but I don't love the whole thing. I really don't. But,
I mean, do I wish it didn't happen like that? I'm not thrilled that there seems to be this thing where we need to be doing this shit in public. Like, you could have very well have done this all without everybody in downtown Miami noticing. Just saying.
Yeah. It's a shitty situation the way Jorge went about it, but it's a reality check that Colby probably needed about what he should or should not be saying to people.
Stop talking about his kids. Stop talking about shit that's way too real that has nothing to do with anything. There are so many things you could talk about.
He's already started talking about Dustin's wife and kids. So like maybe he'll be like, all right, maybe I should stop doing that before I get jumped by someone else now.
Colby it was like, if you're out there, Colby, if you're listening to this, I need you to pump the brakes a little bit, bud. I need you to just dial it back.
Pump the brakes a lot.
like such a dick to everybody around you.
Fucking pull over, Colby. Pull over and take a look in the mirror, bro, and just take a minute and see what you're doing here. Just pull over all the way.
Yeah, like
stop.
It's like Colby, you've arrived. Like you're at the top.
I was just gonna say this.
You're at the top of the division. You're a great fighter. Everybody knows you're a great fighter. Nobody denies that, except some people call you pillow hands.
I honestly feel like I thought this was what you were gonna say, but you didn't quite say it. I feel like Colby has almost reached a point where he is so good at fighting and so tough that people who don't like him are almost willing to be like, Colby's all right. If he would just shut the fuck up for a little bit.
Right.
Like it feels like he's close to getting that respect where people are like, yeah, whatever, Colby's all right. You know, like, but he just won't let it happen.
The thing I hate, though, is the narrative that he had to do this. I don't like that narrative. Dan Lambert has been selling this bullshit that this is what needed to happen in order for Colby's UFC career to keep going. That's horseshit. Did he need a gimmick? I won't argue with that. He probably needed something. I enjoyed him as a fighter, to be quite honest with you. I didn't find necessarily his fights, especially considering most of the humpers that we talk about that are very, very boring, that don't push the fight, that aren't active on the ground. Colby's not like that. Colby is actually very good and a very skilled fighter. And so the narrative that Dan Lambert needed to basically make him into this asshole and made him or told him that he needs to insult Brazil, that he needs to insult their fighter and this, that, and the other, I don't buy it. I 100% don't buy it. There were a million different gimmicks that you could have gone with that would have been just as much fun, if not more, that would have suited Colby, frankly, way better than this like dollar store John Cena shit that we got now. And I just wish that he had chosen a better path, because at this point, as skilled as he is, like, I can't root for him. I don't even buy his pay-per-views. I go to Wild Wings. Like, I won't do it. I just won't do it.
And there are plenty of guys that are at the top of their divisions who are unassuming, normal, nice guys. I mean, think of Robert Whittaker. There are guys who are not American, who barely speak English, who are famous and beloved. Look at Jose Aldo. Doesn't speak a word of English. Anderson Silva on his rise. Barely spoke a word of English. He speaks pretty good now. There are other guys I could think of. But, I mean, look, it also can't be denied that when Colby turned on this gimmick, it started saying awful things about many people and their countries and things like that. It did garner him quite a bit of attention. He suddenly became a name overnight. His name was in a lot of analysts and commentators' mouths almost instantly. It wasn't the best attention, but it was attention. That being said, what else you got, Omar?
I was just thinking about how glorious it was when Anderson first started talking English. Man, I'm just here for a fight. I'm just here for a fight.
He's normal. One of my favorite fucking MMA quotes ever. Guys, he's normal. He's normal.
So good.
I miss
So
Anderson.
All right. Next on the list, Covington, as far as we know, also doesn't like felons, so I'm sure he's thrilled with Chael Sonnen and his 11 battery charges that he is now looking forward to. 10 misdemeanor charges. Thank you, Mike. 10 misdemeanor charges of battery and 1 felony charge of battery by strangulation. So he definitely put somebody in a rear naked choke.
Yes.
That's all the information there is as of right now. Things have basically just been scheduled for him to go to court. He'll be in court on April 27th in Las Vegas. Once that happens, I'm sure we'll have more information as to what happens to Uncle Sonnen from there. Stefan Struve made his name in the news by being a man of the news now. It's a beautiful thing. Stefan Struve has officially retired from MMA. I'm hoping that that's been the case and stays being the case. No one needs to give that man any more damage than he has already sustained. He is currently working for Eurosport Netherlands and Discovery Plus Netherlands as an analyst, commentator, and reporter, and has been doing so since the beginning of 2022. Apparently, it was an opportunity that came up, and he dove right into it. Congratulations, Stefan Struve. Glad you found something that works for you that doesn't involve you taking any more damage at all. Very happy about that. Next on the list, Dan Hardy has been teasing a return to MMA via Eagle FC, which I gotta say is actually way more interesting than I expected it to be when I read it the first time around. I actually think there might be some interesting matchups that they could probably make there, and I'm very interested to see Dan Hardy come back to MMA because he still looks like he's good. And you think from a headspace perspective, he's probably more dangerous now than he was back then. So I'm very interested. I really hope we get to see that sometime soon before he kind of ages out of the whole process. Jimmy Rivera has targeted his BKFC debut on March 6th. His contract with BKFC has been officially signed, so he's ready to go there. No opponent has been named yet. And getting into some fight announcements and some fight changes, Davidson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 4 has been targeted for July. It is now officially the first quadrilogy in the UFC Championship history. Sergio Pettis has been officially removed from Bellator Grand Prix with an injury. There were some videos on his Instagram of him in the hospital in a wheelchair, so I'm going to assume it was a leg injury, but nothing specific as of yet. Yancy Medeiros. What happened?
Tremendous buzzkill.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. Yancy Medeiros is making his Bellator debut against Emmanuel Sanchez on the Honolulu card on April 22nd. Juliana Velasquez will be headlining that card with Liz Carmouche for the Flyweight Bellator Championship, Flyweight Women's Bellator Championship. Rodrigo Nascimento is out against his fight against against Alexander Romanov. Tanner Bozer will now face him on April 23rd for a fight night. Dusko Todorovic. How was that? Was that good? Todorovic?
Sure. I think it's Dushko, but sure.
Oh, damn it. I got the last name right, but the first name wrong. Bullshit. Dushko Todorovic versus Chidi Njokuani has been added to UFC Fight Night May 21st. Huh. That's a good fight. Brendan Allen versus Jacob Malkoun has been added to UFC 275 on June 11th. And we also got a little sneak preview as to what the PFL 2022 regular season is going to look like, at least for the April 20th card they got coming up. Roush Manifo will be headlining against Don Madge for a lightweight fight. Anthony Pettis will be fighting Miles Price in a lightweight fight. Antonio Cara de Zapata, Carlos Jr. will be fighting Dylan Monte. And Clay Collard will be fighting Jeremy Stevens, who is making his PFL debut that day. And that's all the fight announcements we have for this week.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Thank you, sir. Always fun to dive into the headlines and talk about what's going on outside of the cage.
Oh, yes, sir.
That being said, let us dive right back into the cage and discuss this coming weekend's fights. Let's first go to ONE FC. This weekend, ONE Championship is putting on another huge event called ONE X. So let's talk about this in lightning style. We're going to preview 4 fights real quick. Number 1, let's get right into this. Shinya Aoki is taking on Yoshihiro Akiyama. Sexy Yama. Mark, let me start with you first. What's your take? What's your pick?
Yeah, this is a really cool fight that this is happening because in your mind, they're very different weight classes. Akiyama's fought up at middleweight. Aoki has fought down at featherweight. So it's like, it feels like 2 very different sized guys. And apparently they have a rivalry of some sort that I don't know about. Maybe Omar will add to that. But so Aoki is coming up to welterweight to settle it. And while Akiyama is certainly the bigger guy in mass, surprisingly, he's an inch shorter than Shinya Aoki. Oh. And he only has a 3-inch reach advantage. So the size is like not that crazy as it feels like it would be. To me, this just boils down to the fact that Aoki is still nice, whereas Akiyama is not. He's 46 to Aoki's 38. I just can't trust him to get this one done. It will be interesting to see if Aoki can find a sub on him, but I do think Aoki will win, and I'll pick it by sub for the hell of it.
Omar, even though Sexy Yama is the senior fighter in this fight on the order of about 8 years older, Shinya Aoki has quite a longer MMA record with 56 fights. His record stands at 47 victories and 9 defeats. What's your take? What's your pick?
For those who may not know who these fighters are, Akiyama has been in the UFC in the past. You might have seen him in some of the the more OG videos, sort of like the silver age of the UFC. So after it was taken over by Zuffa, but before it was this modern day Venom Reebok age. Akiyama's a decent fighter. He's definitely not an easy out for anybody. He was never like top 5 material. He was kind of always in the top 15-ish, lower in the top 10. Aoki, however, is probably one of the more psychotic people. If anything, he's probably more like the Asian Sean Strickland, if I would.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure Akiyama has broke a man's arm in the ring and then flipped him off. Aoki has broken a man's arm and then flipped him off in the ring after doing so. And a lot of his fights are pretty savage when it comes to his submission game. So if we're gonna go down in weight class and kind of play more towards Aoki's size advantage, I guess in that sense, I would probably give the fight to Aoki. I don't know what Akiyama has been doing lately, where his weight has necessarily been, but the beef doesn't really seem like it's anything too wild other than Aoki has been calling him out for years, and Akiyama has basically said no for years. And so he's just been talking a lot more shit lately, and I guess it just finally finally happened. But I definitely trust Aoki's savage and psychoticness to get him through the fight. So I will go with a second round submission from Aoki.
It's always crazy to me to see dudes with records that long. I mean, I'm looking at his record right now. Aoki has 30 victories by submission.
Yeah.
He has more submission victories than many fighters have fights on their record.
Yes. He's a
valid. Beast, man. He's a beast.
Yeah, man.
A lot of people don't remember him or don't know him because he was never in the UFC. Like he didn't come to like this side of the mainstream. But Aoki's been one of the elite fighters outside of the UFC for years now. Consistently.
Yeah, and he fought in Strikeforce. He fought in Bellator. I mean, only a few, but like he came to Bellator to fight Eddie Alvarez. Granted, he got knocked out by Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah.
But like he's had his little showings in America, and they were good other than that one.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's move on. Remember, lightning round. Let's go. Men's bantamweight 1 title. Adriano Moraes taking on Yuya Wakamatsu. So Moraes, obviously, the coming off of that devastating knockout victory over Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who is also on this card. He is 32 years old. His record stands at 19-3, taking on Wakamatsu Little Piranha. His record stands at 15-4 with 11 knockout victories. Mark, go first.
I think that Adriano Moraes is such a killer in that division over there. He's so big for it. He's so powerful for it. I don't know how he makes the weight. Wakamatsu has been on a nice run, but I think it ends here and ends violently. I will say second round TKO.
Okay. Omer, what's your take? Moraes, the Black Diamond versus the Little Piranha Wakamatsu.
Yeah, I have no intention of picking against anybody who just knocked out Demetrius Johnson. So I'm going to definitely go with Adriano by knockout first round.
And remember, over at 1, knees to a downed opponent are legal. And that is how Moraes got his victory over DJ. Let's march right on to Mr. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson taking on Rontang. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm not going to try to say his last name, but his nickname is the Iron Man. So Mighty Mouse, obviously the longtime UFC flyweight champion. His record as a pro stands at 30-4. Rontang, debuting, I believe, as an MMA pro. He has a long career in Muay Thai. He is the current reigning one championship Muay Thai bantamweight champion. And Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What's your take on this fight?
Okay, remind me about this. How this rule set goes.
Two rounds.
What goes
Muay
first?
Thai. 2 rounds. I believe Muay Thai goes first. I think
1 and 3 are
Muay
Muay Thai, 2 and 4 are MMA.
Yes.
That's a tall order, man. Survive 3 rounds with this animal. I mean, look, Rontang is OG Thailand. That man trains with monsters. The training and the way that they fight and the way that they have game plans in Thailand is for Muay Thai fights specifically is skip. Just look at Khalil Roundtree. Yeah. That's all we really need to say. Rontang, though, has been doing it for probably decades at this point, where Khalil Roundtree probably spent the last couple of years really in Thailand doing it. So if we're starting off with Muay Thai, I love DJ, man. I love DJ. This seems like a bad idea. It just seems like a bad idea.
DJ is also 35, and Rontang is 24. Just a little tidbit.
I did not realize Rontang is that young. Holy shit.
If DJ was younger,
he was like youngish, but wow.
In a Muay Thai fight, if DJ was younger, I'd still be picking Rontang.
Rodtang is
in a
also
Muay Thai
more.
fight, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rodtang's also
yes.
more of a true bantamweight. He's 5'6". DJ's only 5'3". He's been at flyweight a ton of his career. So, like you
Yeah.
said, this is
Well, remember,
a,
this is flyweight. It's just no weight cutting.
Oh, okay. My bad. Didn't
Remember,
know.
it's
So
the
DJ
one
would be
rules.
about 135, 140 in there probably, if not
Yeah.
maybe a little bigger. But yeah, it's a scary thing, right? Because what DJ can normally do in an MMA fight when he gets to somebody like this is he takes him down, but he can't do that here. So if we're gonna go 1 through 3 Muay Thai, I gotta go Rodtang.
Not 1, 2, 3. 1 and 3 are Muay Thai. 2 and 4 is MMA.
Oh, one.
So
one
it
and one.
alternates.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mm.
that would not have been very fair.
Shit, I don't know. Now it made it more difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lightning round. Spit it out.
DJ by decision.
By decision.
Wow, interesting. God.
I'm going to go Rodtang by knockout in the third round.
Interesting. I don't think this is getting past round 2, personally. You would have to say Rodtang has the advantage in round 1 because of the Muay Thai rules. But what makes it so intriguing to me is that DJ is at least like good at striking. He's obviously not Rodtang level of striking, but he's good at striking. So if he can survive a round, and they're only 3-minute rounds, they're not 5. At least I'm 99% sure of that. So if he can do that, he's going to have a massive advantage in round 2, where he is very likely just going to try to take Rodtang down and submit him. And Rodtang's ground game is not close to as good as DJ's striking is. So the much bigger advantage is going to be happening in round 2 and round 4. Granted, Rodtang still gets to strike in those rounds, so it's not going to be super easy for DJ to close the distance anyway. But either way, it should be an epic event. I don't always love the quirky stuff, but this one is cool. I like this mixed rules. They're both huge stars. I think it's a fun one. Obviously, I am partial to MMA, so I will say that DJ survives round 1, gets it done in round 2, finds the sub.
Okay. All right. In the main event of One Championship 1X is a title fight in the women's strawweight division. Angela Lee defending her strap against, I'm not going to say this right, Stamp Fairtex is the fighter's nickname. Nong Stamp, fighting out of Thailand. Mark, go first.
This one is awesome. Angela Lee has been unstoppable at atomweight in 1FC and is the reigning champion. Her only 2 losses are when she attempted to move up in weight to strawweight, and now she's back down defending her crown. And on the other side, you have Stamp Fairtex, who is already the 1 kickboxing and 1 Muay Thai atomweight champion, and who is now getting her shot at Lee after winning the 1 atomweight MMA Grand Prix. So she is trying to be a Triple Crown champ here in 1, which is wild. This is almost like the light version of the contrast in that co-main we just discussed, in that Stamp should have a big advantage on the feet, but Lee is obviously capable there, and Lee should have a big advantage on the mat, but Stamp has actually shown to be surprisingly capable there in her MMA run thus far. She actually won her last fight by armbar. So I don't know what to think of it. Part of me thinks Stamp is just so dangerous striking that she'll find a way to get it done. Lee's coming off a long layoff. She had a kid, hasn't fought since then. So there could even be some rust in the striking, which would not bode well for her against Stamp. But when I look at the records, despite Stamp having a really impressive 8-1 record since starting MMA and winning this Grand Prix, she has only really fought one girl who was remotely a submission threat, and that's Aliana Rosanya. I think I'm saying that right, who choked her out. And then they did rematch, and Stamp won the rematch by decision. But my point is, she gave her some problems, and Angela Lee's ground game is nasty. So if she can find a way to get this to the ground, I don't know if Stamp's jiu-jitsu is good enough to not get tapped by Angela Lee. So it's going to be dangerous. I could easily look dumb when Lee gets KO'd in round 1, because that's 100% possible. But I will say Lee finds a way to get it down there and is a little too tricky for Stamp and finds the sub round 2.
Nice. Omar?
Yeah. Yeah, like Mark was saying, they both present very opposite problems, right? Like, Angela Lee should have a big advantage on the ground. Stamp should have a big advantage on the feet. Looking at her highlights right now, Stamp's knees are fucking scary. scary knees, the way she can blast them out in continuous fashion. Very old school Muay Thai, very original Thailand Muay Thai. It's hard to say, man, because if Stamp does have any kind of competence on the ground, it might very well nullify his Lee ability to really dominate down there. And if that is the case, I do feel like the striking is probably better on Stamp's end. I think it'll be a close fight either way, to be honest, but I will go Stamp by decision.
Okay. I like Lee by decision. I think she's going to have more tools in more places, and we will see. Is it an exciting one card? I'm going to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
It is.
That
There's
being
even
said-
other cool fights, like some of their grappling fights on the card and kickboxing fights on the card. It's a cool card.
Isn't John Wayne Parr on this card?
Yes.
Yes.
He is. I forget if he's doing a Muay Thai fight or a kickboxing fight.
It's a kickboxing fight.
Okay.
Yeah, hang on.
I mean, that makes
So
sense.
cool.
But yeah.
Double check here.
Okay. Let us now turn our attention to this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Daukaus, going down at the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, back on U.S. soil. Let us start in the welterweight division, gentlemen. Neil, the Haitian sensation Magny, taking on Max Payne Griffin. You have Magny, the 34-year-old, with 25 wins, 8 defeats. Very, very well-rounded fighter at welterweight. Has sort of been kind of a glue guy at welterweight. He's just kind of always been there. He's been ranked forever. He hasn't made it to the top of the mountain, but I would consider him a little bit more than a gatekeeper. And Max Payne Griffin, he's been winning fights. He's 18-8 right now as a pro, 9 knockout victories to his name. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What is your take on this very exciting matchup at welterweight, Magny versus Griffin?
So Magny is the favorite here, minus 240. Griffin is plus 190. Max Griffin has always been a fighter that fights to the level of his opponent. Like when they're lesser, he lets them stay in the fight. When they're better, he tends to give them a good scrap. And that's given him a bit of an up and down record. But in this instance, it's a good thing because Neil Magny is probably the second best opponent Max Griffin has ever fought through his 12 fights in the UFC, the best being Colby, of course. So it's very possible that we see Max rise to the occasion here. Griffin is on what has easily been the best run of his octagon career thus far, winning 3 in a row. He seems to have found more of a comfort to his game lately, I would say, that has allowed him to use more of his weapons and be a bit more dangerous in there. But with all that being said, Neil Magny is still Neil Magny. He's just a better fighter. He's got more skills. He can win the fight in more ways, and he shouldn't be losing to Max Griffin. I'm honestly a little confused as to why Neil Magny even got put in this fight, because it's a risk that he shouldn't have to be taking considering his standing in the division. I don't know why he's not fighting another ranked fighter, and Griffin is not even that close to the rankings in mine or anywhere else I really look. So it's a little bit random, but again, Griffin poses a threat, but I think Magny gets it done. I think he's stronger in the clinch, which he leans on. I think he's slicker on the mat if they end up down there. He's longer, which should help. I just think he can take the fight wherever he needs to take it to get the W. So I will say Magny unanimous decision.
Okay, Omar, what's your take in this welterweight clash of East Coast versus West Coast? Magny, of course, being the Brooklyn guy, and Max Griffin being a California boy. What's your take?
I'm not going to harp on it too much. It's Neil Magny. Y'all must have forgot. It's Neil Magny. I'm going with Neil Magny. I'm going with the boy, Neil Magny. And I'm actually going to go with KO by vicious elbow in the third round. Wow. Neil Magny, baby.
Yeah, I kind of want to be the contrarian and take Griffin because I feel like he's developing a knack of how to win decisions. But I agree with you guys.
Neil Magny.
Yeah, I think Magny's going to be too talented for him overall. And he's going to be, in terms of his physical attributes, a guy at welterweight, Magny being 6'3", he's going to present a package of attributes that Griffin has yet to face. He's going to have a hard time cracking that puzzle. And I see Magny getting his hand raised. I'm going to take Magny by UD. Okay, let's move on.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah, real quick.
Omar, who'd you take in that fight?
Magny.
What was his
Just in
first
case
name?
you weren't sure.
What's the full name?
I didn't make it clear. Neil Magny, baby.
Okay.
What did you think he said?
Got it. I knew what he said. He said it 17 times.
Yeah,
That's
he's
the
making
joke.
fun of me.
Okay.
Omar's
My
in
bad.
on the joke. We lost you.
All right. In the women's flyweight division, Jennifer Maia taking on Manon the Beast Fior. Huge step up for Fior, although she has looked very good so far in her career as a pro and her career in the UFC. She is 8-1. She is, of course, fighting out of Nice, France. She's 32 years old. Pretty well-rounded striker, bringing in 6 knockout victories off her 8 wins. Jennifer Maia, of course, fighting out of Brazil. I actually know the guy who is her manager. She's 33. She's 19-8 and 1 draw. And she has challenged for the title at women's flyweight. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What is your take of Manon Fior with the biggest test so far in her career?
I love Manon Fior. I love the way she fights. She's super aggressive. Did not come out right?
No, I disagree.
Oh.
I don't love her. I don't like the way she fights.
I do. I think she's very I think she's a very aggressive fighter. I think the fight's actually super interesting. I don't think it's a very easy fight to pick. But to be honest, I have Fior winning this, and if I had to go with a way, I think they're going to get into a firefight, and I think Fior is going to end up coming out on top. So I'll go with her second round TKO.
Okay, Mark, give us your take of Fior versus Maia.
So I was all ready to be over here and explain why I think Manon Fior matches up with Jennifer Maia and can pull this upset. Then I go get the odds. She is minus 460.
Oh my
God!
God!
The whole world is thinking the same exact thing as me and Omar.
Wow.
I did think I'd be in the minority here picking Fior, but
Jennifer Maia is plus 340 underdog. So Manon Fior was originally booked to take on number 10 ranked Jessica Ai. And then lucky for her, when I had to pull out, the replacement ended up being number 4 ranked Jennifer Maia. So Manon Fior, who the UFC currently has ranked at 13, I have ranked at 17, now finds herself with a chance to break into the top 5 out of literally nowhere. And I honestly think there are other girls in the top 10 who could have given Fior some potential trouble, but I don't think Jennifer Maia is one of them. Fior is going to have a 3-inch height and 2-inch reach advantage on Maia, and she's just bigger. To me, she's the more powerful fighter, the stronger fighter. I don't think Maia's game works here. If this thing can end up on the mat, then you never know what Maia can pull off, but I just think Fior is going to keep it standing, pick her apart for a unanimous decision win, and suddenly be a top 5 flyweight in the world.
I have to agree with you guys, even though I already outed myself as a Fior hater.
Why? Elaborate.
I don't know. Just the way she fights, she's kind of like, she yells a lot, and
at least she's hitting people, though. I mean, she's knocked down a few people with the yelling. So,
yeah, just the yelling, not the strikes, just the power of her voice.
Chukagian, who actually hits people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
hair color and all.
About Chukagian last fight, so maybe me and let's try to keep the friendship going.
That's true. That's true. Mark put an olive branch out the last time.
I think that Fior is going to tower over Jennifer Maia at 5'7", and Jennifer Maia is only 5'4", so she's going to be much taller. She's going to have an easier reach for those striking skills, and I don't see Maia being able to get the fight anywhere else, such as a clinch or down to the mat, to change the trajectory of this fight, and I'm going to see Fior cruise to a UD. All right, let's move on. In the heavyweight division, we have Alexei the Boa Constrictor Olenek, the Ageless Wonder, taking on Ilia, the Sledgehammer Latifi. A couple of big boys throwing down. We, of course, the Olenek, the fighting out of Moscow, Russia. He is 44 years old. Like I said, the Ageless Wonder. One of the crazier records you will see in MMA. Like I said, he's 44 years old. So his record is 59 wins and 16 losses. Of his 59 wins, he has 46 submission victories. Oh, my God. That's insane. Ilia Latifi is no slouch. He is 38 years old, 15-8 as a pro. Very well-rounded fighter. 10 finishes, 6 by knockout, 4 by submission, 5 victories by decision. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What is your take on this style matchup between the Boa Constrictor, Olenek, and the Sledgehammer Latifi?
I think, there was a point where we were watching Olenek and we really thought that he probably made a lot of people believe that his entire career from this point on was basically just going to consist of Ezekiel choking everybody that he fights. Once we saw that wasn't really the case, we saw that he has a lot of holes in his game and he's very vulnerable and very hittable and very knockoutable. His submission game is obviously something to be concerned about, but at the same time, he hasn't really shown a variety of submissions, at least not within the UFC. So like, even though he's been able to implement his game in some of his fights, it's not obviously something that's consistent. Ilir Latifi is somebody who thrives on the ground, somebody who I don't think has a neck to be choked out with. I think his muscles upon muscles will protect him from a lot of those attacks, and I don't foresee him getting stuck in the same issues a lot of other guys have. And I kind of see him being able to take down Oleinik and being able to work Oleinik from various positions, being able to keep control for the majority of it. I don't see Oleinik striking being anything to worry about overall. I think Ilir has what it takes to win this fight. I'm going to go with Ilir Latifi by decision.
Mark?
So Oleinik is the dog here, slight dog, plus 150. Latifi is minus 185. This one's interesting because Latifi is a career light heavyweight, obviously, who's gone up to heavyweight now and looked pretty good through 2 fights. But again, the size is going to be a big factor for him here because Oleinik is going to have a 4-inch height and a 7-inch reach advantage. Now, the good thing for Ilir is that as he is looking to close that distance, Oleinik is going to be looking to do the same thing because, of course, as we know, he wants to get a hold of you. So it shouldn't be too hard for Latifi to get in range to land shots. But at the same time, as he's trying to do that, he's going to have to try to make sure Oleinik is not grabbing a hold of him. So it's a tricky dance that he is going to have to do here. But Ilir can wrestle. He's got that low center of gravity that makes him hard to take down. And he's also got a frame that's hard to submit because of how squat he is. And Omar stole my joke that he has no neck. So Alexi's dangerous. We know he always is. But guys have been able to find his chin lately. And Ilir's got power to do it. It's a little bit of a flyer since it's been a while since we've seen Ilir put someone out. But I'm going to say he does it. I will say second round TKO for Latifi.
I like it. And I agree. I think at this point, especially in Oleinik's career, every fight that he's in still just hinges on the question of whether or not he can grab a hold of his opponent before he gets thumped. He doesn't really bring many other skills into the cage. And at this point, the guy's 44. As much as I would love to see him get his 60th win of his career, that would be very cool. In fact, I would love more to see him get this 60th win and then put the gloves on the mat and retire and walk away with 60 victories. So cool. That being said, I don't see that happening. I think he's just too old. He's slowing down even more. And Latifi has big power. And I see Latifi hurting him, and I agree with Mark, and I see Latifi getting him out there. And I will also go with a knockout or TKO in the second round. Okay, let's move on. To the welterweight division of very fun fights. Matt, the Immortal Brown. If this guy isn't one of your favorite fighters all time, if you don't know as much about him, he's a little bit of a guy that newer fans might not know a whole lot about. The guy is an absolute gangster. Matt, the Immortal Brown, taking on Brian Bam Bam Barberena. Going back over to Matt Brown. He's 41 years old. His record is 23-18, 15 knockouts. He always brings it. Barberena, 32 years old, fighting out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, 16-8 as a pro, 10 knockout victories to his own name. Omar, let me start with you this time. What is your take on this welterweight clash?
This is actually going to be a fun fight, I think, regardless of how it goes. Brian Barberena is a savage, just continuously coming forward, continuously moving, regardless of whether he's losing the fight or not. He does have some talent to him, but I feel like he is still very raw and relies a lot on his toughness to get him through a lot of fights. That shit doesn't work with Matt Brown. Matt Brown will put you straight out, and he'll put you out with one of his elbows. And elbows, I'm pretty sure, is a coin or a term coined by Matt Brown and the followers of Matt Brown. The man can sleep anybody if he gets you clean with an elbow. I just see that fight being so chaotic that at some point he probably does land an elbow on Barberena and probably does put him out. So I will go with a second round TKO via elbow.
Mark?
This is a fight that just needed to happen, huh? These two guys. The odds, last I looked, were a dead pick'em. They're both minus 110. Obviously, both of these guys are toward the latter end of their careers. Neither of them have had a real quality win in a little while. But of those two careers, Matt Brown's was way more impressive, and he is still at least knocking guys out. His last one over Diego Lima was a devastating KO. So I'm going to go with Matt Brown. I think he's absolutely the more dangerous and dynamic fighter. What gives me pause is that he's also much more hurtable historically than Barberena is. So you never know how that's going to factor into these exchanges. It could be that Brown is winning, but it only takes one and suddenly he's hurt. Whereas Barberena has very hard head. It's kind of harder to hurt him. But I'm going to say they both try to kill each other, and I can't resist Matt Brown. I'm going to say it's Barberena who falls. I just think Matt Brown is trickier and slicker in the way that he sets up his kill shots that you don't see it coming. And I think that is maybe what the difference will be here. So I'm going to go Matt Brown, 3rd round KO, also via elbow.
I see this fight being a very back and forth. Like you guys are saying, Brian Barberena, my man, can take a beating and give some of his own. Matt Brown very often lives up to his nickname, being the Immortal. I totally agree with you, Mark. I think that Matt Brown is a little more hurtable. So I see this fight being back and forth, of which I think Brown is going to be winning more of it. And I think he's going to find himself getting hurt maybe in the middle of the fight, maybe the first round, maybe the second round, hurt real bad. And I think that Matt Brown is going to win a split decision.
Interesting.
I'll tell you now, if it's a split decision, it could be fight of the night right there.
Oh, I think it will be.
No.
That's my pick for fight of the night.
Oh, quite possibly. All right, moving on to the, where are we at here? Pulling my thing back up.
Askarov and Kai Kara.
Yes, in the flyweight division, Askar, the Bullet Askarov, taking on Kai Don't Blink Kara France. Oh, man, what a fight.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Askarov, the Dagestani, the Russian, 29 years old, still entering his prime, undefeated, 14-0. Very well-rounded fighter, very dangerous fighter. Taking on Kai Kara France, fighting out of Auckland, New Zealand, 23-9 as a pro, also in his prime at 28 years old. Guys, this is a great fight. By the way, Kai Kara France, 11 knockout victories to his name. Mark, let me start with you this time. What is your impression on this very, very exciting flyweight matchup?
So the odds are pretty wide. Askarov is minus 360 favorite. Kara France is a plus 280 dog. This one is about as big as it gets at flyweight right now outside of a title fight. On one hand, you have Askarov, still undefeated. His only semi-blemish is his split draw with Brandon Moreno in his debut. Granted, most did think he lost that fight to Moreno, but even so, either way, since then he has turned back Tim Elliott, Alexandre Pantoja, and Joseph Benavidez, just to prove the level that he's on. Then on the other hand, you have Kai Kara France, who looks like he just might be on one of those runs right now. He is 3-1 since his own competitive loss to Brandon Moreno. Yes, he got caught in a guillotine by Brandon Royval in there, but even in that fight, and especially in his most recent ones against Rogerio Bontorin and Cody Garbrandt, Kai Kara France has looked like he is on a whole nother level from his prior self. He has been stuffing takedowns. He gets up well off the ground, and he is a killer if you give him an opening on the feet. This one could easily go Askarov's way, as you can see by the betting odds, in a fight where he kind of keeps Kai at bay, uses his length a little bit. Kai's reach is actually more than Askarov's, which feels wild to me. I always forget how long Kai is. He's crazy long for that division. But where he kind of keeps Kai at bay, controls him here and there, lands some strikes. But I just feel like it's Kara France's time, and I'm going to go with the underdog here.
Love it.
Can he KO Askarov, who's obviously never been finished, let alone beaten at all? I don't know, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say Askarov may be winning the fight early, but that by kind of late round 1 into round 2, Kara France finds a range, finds a groove, starts to hurt him, and puts him away by the end of the round. KO.
Okay, I'm here for it. Omar, what's your take? Kai Kara France, Askarov, who you taking?
So this might be my crazy pick of the night. I'm also on board with Kai Kara France. I think this is his time. I think he has looked very different in his last few fights. I think the confidence that he walks into the cage with is on a different level than it ever has been. And the only thing that always concerns me about undefeated fighters is guys that haven't necessarily been tested, right? Like he had the long fight with Brandon Moreno, but now we're really playing for some keeps and some stakes. And I just feel like Kai Kara has kind of already been through some of those ups and downs, and I think he's been able to work on the things that he knows he needs work on. And we've seen the evolution in the last few fights. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that he's going to try to make a statement with Askarov, and I think he finds a submission. I think he catches him in a submission, and I think he does it relatively early. I'm going to go with second round, but I think he does it. I think he gets it done early in the second round.
Oh, man.
I have no real rhyme or reason for that, by the way.
No. I mean, I get it. Both of you guys, Kara France, he's really riding quite a wave of momentum, and he's showing the world his skill set. But man, an undefeated fighter through 15 contests. That's hard to any say. He's a Dagestani guy. It's hard to pick against that. I'm going to be the contrarian. As much as I love Kara France, I love this guy. He's one of my new favorite fighters. I'm going to go with Askarov to get it done by unanimous decision. Boring. Can I boo myself? Okay. Also, why is this fight not the co-main event?
I had the same thought. Like, who was like, yeah, let's take Joanne Wood and make her the co-main over Kara France and Askarov fighting for a title shot? Makes zero sense.
Unbelievable. Okay. That being said, the co-main event is Joanne, formerly Joanne Calderwood, now Joanne Wood, JoJo, taking on Alexa Grasso. So you got JoJo from Scotland. She's 35. Her record as a pro is 15-7. Her record in the UFC is 7-7. So again, adding to my confusion of why a 500 fighter who is coming off of back-to-back losses, as much as she is a fan favorite, is getting to be featured in the co-main. Alexa Grasso,
her, but let's live in reality.
Yes, exactly. Alexa Grasso fighting out of Guadalajara, Mexico. She's 13-3 as a pro. She's 28 years old, in her prime. Joanne Wood, by the way, is 35. Grasso, very well-rounded fighter, tough to get out of there. 9 decision victories to her name, 4 knockouts, no submission wins. This should be a tough fight for Joanne Wood. Mark, let me start with you first. What's your take?
So Grasso is a fairly significant favorite here. She's -250. Joanne Wood is the +200 dog. I am having a really hard time analyzing and picking this fight. Technically speaking, I want to pick JoJo simply because all she has to do is strike. She doesn't have to worry about big KO power coming back at her. She doesn't really have to worry about the takedown. Grasso's probably going to just be looking to box. So the fight should be taking place right in JoJo's wheelhouse. And she's got more tools there than Grasso does. But I just feel like I can't pick JoJo right now until I see her put out a good performance, because I don't like how she's been looking lately. And if we're talking straight boxing, Grasso does have the better hands. She probably has better footwork and a better chin. So while I could absolutely see JoJo put out more volume, have the more variety of strikes, and sneak out a decision that way, I just think she may let herself get outstruck and outpaced by Grasso. So I'll say Grasso wins it off the back of some clean boxing, unanimous decision.
Omar?
Yeah, I would have to agree, man. I mean, JoJo hasn't really put on the best of performances. I think probably the most competitive performance she's had recently was the Lauren Murphy one. And to be honest, that one should not have been that competitive. I mean, JoJo on paper should be a much better striker than she showed. It seems like she's missing a step somewhere in there. I don't know, it could be from anything at this point in time, wear, tear, whatever it is. But it does look like she's not the same JoJo that I started watching fight, who's kind of this Muay Thai phenom, use her strikes very effectively. Just doesn't really seem to be the case. Grasso does have decent hands, and my only concern is if she does end up putting hands on Wood, how much she kind of that stops her forward momentum and stops her forward pressure. We've seen that once Joanne starts to take some damage, that it almost like makes her take her foot off the gas pedal, so to say. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Grasso by decision. I'm hoping at the very minimum it's a competitive decision, so JoJo walks away with at least, a little bit of dignity or whatever it is, but I don't see her winning that fight.
Yeah, I agree. We are unanimous on this one. I also will be taking Alexa Grasso by unanimous decision. This is a fight that she should win, and I think she's going to end the night with her hand raised. That being said, let's go on to the main event now. In the heavyweight division, a contest of consequence. We have Curtis Razor Blaydes taking on Chris Daukaus. So Chris Daukaus, 32 years old, 6'2". His record stands at 12-4 with 11 knockout victories. He, though, is coming off of that devastating knockout loss at the hands of the UFC knockout king, Mr. Derek Lewis. Curtis Blaydes, 31 years old, in his prime as well, 15-3 as a pro, 10 knockout or TKO victories. He is arguably the division's best wrestler, and he will ground and pound you into dust if you give him the chance. Mark, let me start with you. What is your take on this big-time heavyweight bout?
So Blaydes is minus 375, pretty big favorite. Daukaus is plus 290 coming back the other way. This is one of those cards where I don't have a great vibe about my fight picks. Like, I'm confident in them, but almost every fight we've discussed tonight, I have like a weird feeling, weird vibe where I'm like, this might end up going the other way. This one is the outlier because I cannot see Chris Daukaus beating Curtis Blaydes. I'm very confident in this pick. Yes, Daukaus has KO power. Yes, Blaydes has been knocked out before, but that was Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, and I don't think Chris Daukaus is on that level. Yes, Chris Daukaus supposedly has some nice jiu-jitsu. We haven't seen it yet, but I don't think that's going to matter underneath a guy like Curtis Blaydes, and that is exactly where I expect Chris Daukaus to be, is underneath Curtis Blaydes. We saw Curtis come out in his last fight with Rosenstrike and go right to the wrestling. He never even bothered to play around on the feet. And I think we see the same thing here. I think that Derek Lewis KO made Blaydes realize that he is a wrestler and only a wrestler. And at least in this matchup, I think that serves him well. Maybe it takes him a couple of attempts to get it to the mat, but once he does, and once he starts to wear on Daukaus, make him hold his weight, I think the takedowns start to get easier as the rounds go on. And I think that in 5 rounds, Blaydes can get him out of there. I will say a late 3rd round TKO for Curtis Blaydes.
Ooh. Omar, what do you think?
When it comes to, I feel like there are a lot of fighters that get coined with the phrase, his Brazilian jiu-jitsu is really good, but then they don't ever do anything with it. There's probably a handful of guys that really, when you hear that phrase, you go, oh yeah, that dude's a problem with his jits. Olenek would be one of them. Verdum. But I don't see Chris Daukaus having some kind of jiu-jitsu that's all of a sudden going to make Curtis Blaydes have to change his game or not go to his game, or will make his game any less effective than it will probably be. If he pulls up a triangle in the middle of getting ground and pounded and pulls off a Paul Craig, I'll shut up. But the reality is I don't see that happening at all. Curtis Blaydes, his top pressure is very serious. The only time we've really seen Curtis Blaydes falter is in his attempts to go for a takedown where he's just gotten slept. Could that happen in this fight? 100%. Daukaus could 100% catch him with an uppercut on the way in, catch him with a knee on the way in, could catch him with anything basically on the way in and put his lights out. Statistically, though, and on paper, this really should be a fight that Curtis Blaydes wins with very minimal effort. So I'll go with Curtis Blaydes by decision.
I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes by TKO, but I'm going to say that it comes in the 2nd round. I think he's going to be, he's a much taller guy. I think he's going to be much bigger than Daukaus. He's obviously in much better shape than Daukaus. I don't think Daukaus has the ability or the power to really hurt Blaydes in the way that Derek Lewis did, obviously. and I see Blaydes definitely getting this fight to the ground and just doing what he does, doing what he's done over and over again, and I don't see Chris Daukaus being able to stop it. So I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes, second round, TKO on the ground. And that just about does it for this week's preview of UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Daukaus, as well as all of the fights this coming weekend between UFC and ONE Championship. A lot of fun stuff to watch, people.
What an episode. We left it all out there. Left it all on the field.
We sure did. And we're not done, folks.
We're not done,
we still
baby.
have a little bit of trivia for you guys. So here we go. Once again, if this is your first time watching, and if you've made it this far, thank you so much. We end with a little bit of a, I like to think of it as like dessert, where I try to craft a trivia question or two for these two MMA purists that I share this podcast with. All right, here we go. Question number 1. When Demetrius Johnson was the reigning UFC flyweight champion, he defended his title numerous times. How many successful title defenses did Mighty Mouse have before losing the title to Henry Cejudo? Was it A, 11, B, 12, C, 13, or D, 14?
Mark, what was your initial thought? Because mine was 11.
Mine was 12 before I heard the choices. What were the choices? 11 through 14, right? Were the choices?
Yes.
I don't think it was 13 or 14.
12 was what popped into my head, so I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah, I'll go with 11.
The answer is A, 11.
Nice.
Cejudo was his 12th
Cejudo
title
would have been
defense.
12. That's why it was in my head. Okay.
But you could also say that I asked for how many successful title defenses, but you could also say that he won 12 title fights at flyweight.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought you asked, of course.
All right, question number 2. I'm sticking with Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Mighty Mouse only has 4 losses in his pro MMA career. Can you name the 4 opponents who got the best of Mighty Mouse? This is fill in the blank. Whichever one of you gets more names. Let's do this. Write them down or something like that now. We'll do it like Final Jeopardy.
I have 3 already. I just can't think of the 4th.
There you
Wait,
go.
what? Write them down on a paper?
Well, he's already got more than I do.
Or on your phone or something like that. And then you'll hold it up.
All right.
Oh, this is good. Everybody who's listening or watching, just think of the Jeopardy song in your head.
Well, this is no good.
Because if we play it, we'll probably get sued. We're taken off YouTube.
I can't think of the 4th. This man lost 4 times? Who the
Only
hell
4
else
times.
beat him? If you asked me how many losses he has, I would have said 3 in a second.
Omar?
Oh.
You're going to kick yourself.
I am? I know.
You're not going to kick yourself because this one is...
The one I don't know has to be the first one.
Okay,
of his
I do
career.
have. I do have the 3 then that he got. The one that I'm thinking of, though, he didn't lose that fight, but he was supposed to lose that fight. But then he won that fight.
All right. Hold your phones up or whatever you wrote it down on. Up to the screen. We got Mark. Okay, Omar says Adriano Moraes, Henry Cejudo, and Dominic Cruz.
Yeah,
Mark also says Moraes, Cejudo, and Cruz. That's right. You both got 3 out of the 4. His first loss as a professional, and Mark, you were right. The one you can't think of is the one that was his first loss.
Yeah. Wait, tell us the organization first. We'll see if that triggers it.
The WEC.
Now, I figured it had to be WEC, but I can't fucking think of who it was.
He only had 3 fights in the WEC.
Yeah.
His first fight in the WEC was a loss.
How did he lose it?
Unanimous decision.
That doesn't help me. I don't know.
In 2010, at WEC 48, on the undercard of the card that featured the main event was Aldo versus Faber. When
Wait,
Aldo,
what?
yes, WEC 48, Aldo versus Faber. On the undercard, Brad Pickett defeated Demetrius Johnson by unanimous decision,
Yes, he
earning
did.
a 30-27,
Did.
30-27, and 29-28.
Brad Pickett.
Talk about the come up though from Demetrius Johnson losing a unanimous decision to Brad Pickett and then becoming one of the best in the world still to this day.
How about the way we just closed out that episode? We started with the British, we ended with Brad Pickett.
Wait,
that's poetry.
I'm gonna ruin that right now. Your boy has a trivia question for both of you.
Oh my God!
Just one. I had to. I did a little bit of research on my stuff and something came up that I thought was too cool not to bring up, so I'm gonna do so. As we have recently found out, Moreno versus Davidson Figueiredo is our first quadrology when it comes to UFC fight championships, right?
Right.
There have only been technically 3 other pairs of fighters who have fought each other 4 times.
Oh, shit.
Maybe not all in the UFC. I will caveat with that. They may have, for example, fought in a different promotion other than the UFC, but they have fought each other 4 times. Can you name the 3, at least the 2 pairs of fighters? The third one is sort of like extra credit.
There are 3?
God, I don't think I'm going to get a single one.
I don't think so either.
Who the fuck fought 4 times?
And to be fair, they're all people that you guys would know.
Oh, fuck.
All 6 of them?
Yes.
Oh. What? 4 times?
They're all big name fighters. They are not random
I gotta
people.
think for a second.
Are any of them named Frankie Edgar?
They are not.
No.
No, that was a 3. That was a 3.
I thought about Maynard, but it's only 3. Boy, oh boy.
My brain wants to immediately go to Liddell and Tito, but that was only 2 fights.
That was, yeah.
That was just like a 20 years.
Technically, that was 3. Technically.
Was it?
Well, now that they did the last one in the recent few years.
Oh, right.
But even still, it's still 3.
God, this is
hard, Mark.
I'm trying to run division by division in my brain and see if anyone like pops into my head, but literally no one is.
Why would somebody fight somebody 4 times? Like if it wasn't for some like titled trilogy that I can't think of. There must have been at some point like a draw in there at some point.
I will tell you one of them. The first one that I have on my list here is 1 win for the first fighter, 2 wins for the second fighter, and 1 no contest. My second pairing is equaled up with 2 wins and 2 wins for each.
Wow, they got to do a 5th.
How much am I going to kick myself, Omar?
All right, let's do this because you have nothing right now, right, Mike?
Nothing.
I have nothing either. Can you give us
I'll
whatever
give you
you
the
think
extra
the one
credit.
you might most get? Can you give us the weight class?
The one you might most get?
Yeah, sure.
Let's try to get us to get something here.
I don't even know if they were in the same.
We're just dragging this episode out.
Yeah.
It's already the longest episode ever.
I'd have to make sure that they were in the same weight class because they might have moved around. I think they would have moved around between middleweight and light heavyweight.
It's funny. That's where my brain is at. Is that division? And I mean, I'm sure the other ones are different.
Maybe I should go back. Maybe
go
back.
My brain was around
back
that size people.
We got to go back in the day. I'm going to take a guess. Random guess. I'm going to go Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie.
No.
4 times?
No.
They only fought like once.
That's a smart era to go to, though.
Am I warm, Omar? By going back in the day?
Too far back. You done overshot it a bit.
All right, Omar. I don't know.
It's like Tank Abbott versus Butterbean or somebody like that.
No. All right, so here we go.
Go with the one you thought we would least get first.
The one you would least get? The one you would least get is Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That is the extra credit one that I gave you guys.
That's not an MMA.
Right. So that was why that was extra credit. But they have fought each other 4 times, 3 in kickboxing and 1 in MMA. So that's extra credit.
Right.
That's extra credit.
So I'm not mad at myself for that.
The 2 MMA fights, I'm going to start with the one that I think you probably may not have even remembered. Andrei Arlovski versus Tim Sylvia.
They fought 4 times?
Oh, wow.
Arlovski won once, Sylvia won twice, and there was a no contest in between the two.
But what umbrella one was not UFC, right?
I don't believe so.
Oh
I
my
gotta
God.
look. Don't tell us the next one yet. I need to understand this. Yeah, one was not UFC. So
yeah.
what is it?
One FC was the last one, the no contest.
One FC.
Mm-hmm. One FC
Wow.
5.
Wow.
I mean, one FC.
Mark's like in denial.
They fought in one FC.
This looks like before it was the one that we know now. This was in 2012.
Oh, some other shit.
Wow.
So
But
that's why
it's
we
still
don't know.
one. They just might have rebranded and made it prettier since then and whatever else.
Yeah, so they had a random. Wow.
So there you go. There's the one.
Right.
Now, the one I thought you guys might have had the best chance of getting, this one you might kick yourselves for. Vanderlei Silva versus Rampage Jackson.
Wow.
Each of them,
I
2
can't
and
say I
2.
realized it was 4.
No, me neither.
Each
I
of
knew it
them
was
2
3.
and 2.
I know they fought. Oh, did they fight twice at Pride?
I believe so.
And
And
I
they
know they
fought
fought in the
once.
UFC.
They fought twice in Pride, but I thought it was only one in the UFC.
I believe they also
Oh, dude, they did the Bellator
they
fight.
fought in Bellator.
They-
Mhm.
That's why we're
Wow.
not getting these, Mike, because they're doing the 4th fights when they're old as fuck, and we're not even thinking about that.
Not even thinking about that. Yeah, obviously.
That was Vanderlei's last fight that he's had.
Well done.
The
Well
Bellator
done.
fight.
There you
That
go.
was
Well
tricky.
done all.
That was tricky.
Good
All right, let
research
us-
to give to you guys. I figured. You
Yeah,
had it.
man. That was cool. That was fun.
Wow.
It stumped us, but it was fun. Cool. Let us bring this episode to a close. Anybody who's still watching, thank you. And one more time, go ahead and subscribe to our video if you haven't already. Find us wherever you get your podcast. Share this episode with somebody who you know who loves MMA and might not yet know who we are. And find us on social media at @andnew_MMA show. DM us. Let us know your feedback. We would love to know your feedback on the show, the format, our takes, things you liked, didn't like, all of it. It's all good. That being said, guys, any parting shots for tonight?
Yes.
I'm just glad people are still with us 2.5 hours later. I love you guys.
Mine are good night. I'm going to sleep.
All right, boys. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the fights.
Peace.
Peace.